how is the music scene in India evolving? One, what is a good change that has come about? And what needs to change?
Great questions. There are a lot of artists that fucking suck, right? But they're so marketable. We are, as consumers, getting more fucked now than we ever have been, just in terms of how much value we're getting out of our tickets. I don't know how to go on tour, right? Say I'm a young new musician. I don't have the contacts. I don't have the network to allow me to get a show. The problem becomes in the fine print. When they don't know what they're getting into, the kind of deals that they're getting into.
Yeah.
That's when the naivety ends up becoming a bane. It becomes a prick in their ass.
Am I audible? Do I sound like you can hear me clearly? Why can't you see me?
I can't see you too well, but I can hear you.
Wave your hand. Yes. I see you move. I see you move. It works. Nobody moved. Nobody moved from wherever they are. Everybody, all of you are in the right place.
Welcome to Stories with Shastri. We have Aaryaman Trivedi joining us today. Aaryaman Trivedi has worked extensively in the music industry in India for the past half a decade. I think it's been more. I don't know why it's half a decade.
A little bit more around,
Yeah,
roughly.
around with focused work ranging from artist management, tour management, label execution, editorial long form and short form writing, interviews on camera and written, business development, brand partnerships, and live event ticketing. So I obviously have to really get my best foot forward in order to talk to someone who specializes in this. Uh, from being a senior writer at Rolling Stone India to currently being the India booking agent for phenomenal acts such as Peter Cat Recording Co., the F16s, and Lifafa, Ariman has worked across the breadth of the industry. Uh, I got to meet Ariman through some of our common friends, and we vaguely spoke about this podcast very many years ago, and we're finally getting to this.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure that we can finally make this happen after, you're right, it's been a while since we've decided to do this. But I'm glad that we could finally sit down and have a chat. So, actually, I didn't study or did any formal education that kind of was even remotely around music or the industry or, music management, etc. I studied political science, and I just kind of happened to stumble into, a lot of my friends were musicians, a lot of my friends were working in the scene, especially after I graduated from college. And I just kind of, I don't know, I fell in love with just the kind of personalities that were around me, the kind of work that they were doing, because this was back in I would say 2018, 2019. There wasn't really a formal industry as such. There was still there were certain processes, but it was really, really informal and loose, and everyone was still trying to figure out, growing pains, like how does making money as a musician work? How can you start a label? How can you start a studio? So my first job was actually working at a recording studio in Ahmedabad, and we were all just kind of figuring things out. My boss at the time, he was really passionate about studio gear and recording equipment, and he was a bit of an audiophile that way. And I was just happy to be around. I was just like, hey, I'm happy to get coffee for people. I'm happy to do social media stuff, just whatever I can to be around the people that I thought were really cool. And then slowly you end up doing odd tasks here and there. At least I did. That kind of helped me, I guess, understand that, hey, there's a way that we can maybe formalize things a little bit. And then you hustle your way. And then I eventually got a job in Bombay, and that was a much more, it was an artist management gig. So that was way more straight into the trenches. Luckily, my company at the time, Third Culture Entertainment, we had a superb roster, artists that to this day I still listen to and fuck with, like Kayan, J Babe, NATO 8, a lot of really cool Bombay-based and Bangalore-based artists. And yeah, man, I just kind of, I was enamored by not only the idea of working with really, really interesting and creative individuals, but also to be able to be like, hey, this is a job I can take seriously. It's not just something that I'm doing it's less throw something on the wall and hope it sticks. It's more like, hey, we can actually make something cool happen.
That's very good. I I also actually majored in political science in my undergrad, so that's something we have in common. I
Same here.
uh I don't know if we ever actually spoke about this, did we?
I think like when we first met, we briefly like I remember we were at I think we were
Daily.
at Daily. Yeah, we
And
were
we
probably at
sat,
Daily.
you were the one I was talking to about research.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
correct,
was
correct.
trying to figure out which friend of mine that I told that one day I will finish this research paper. And I
Yeah, and that was actually so surreal because that was I think that was like a couple months after like I finished college, like
Mm.
fresh out of off the boat, and we had come. I think I was with a couple of my friends and we'd come to Pune for the weekender, and that was actually my first like music festival, like the first music festival I went to that I properly enjoyed. And the funniest fucking thing happened. Like I think you were also at the festival if I'm not wrong, or we had all come afterwards or something to Delhi. Anyway, so at the festival, I went to go see J Babe perform, right? And I was like, oh shit, I'm a huge fan. And after his performance, Josh came out and he's like, he's saying hi to everyone. He's like taking photos and everything. And I'm not even. I wish I was making this up. Exactly a year later, I joined Third Culture and I became his manager.
Wow.
So it was weirdly surreal. Like I was like, oh, this is my first experience. I'm a little starstruck. And then to the day a year later, I'm working with that person, getting to like book shows, go on tour, things like that. So yeah, weirdly enough, that was a pretty seminal moment, I guess, in Pune.
Yeah, I'm glad Pune does have that effect on people. I have a friend who says, who once said that Pune knows how to suck you in and spit you out at the same time.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So that's pretty cool. Even funnily, the Weekender was my first music festival too. Uh, I remember I was tutoring a junior of mine from school. I charged him $70 an hour for a few months, and I paid for my ticket because
Oh
my
yeah,
mom refused to partake in this.
yeah.
And it was very interesting because I was probably the only 10th grader from my batch who was at the Weekender because
Oh, so
everyone
this was
was,
when you were still in high school.
yeah, yeah. And it was one of the early ones, or I don't remember if it was the first one. One of them. But
Yeah,
so one of my neighbors, so my mom knew his mom, and he's about 2 years older than me. So she told him that, oh, you have to take care of my child. And
yeah.
now I have gone with my seniors from school, so I'm the cool cat walking around, and everybody's taken a photo with Duelist Inquiry. Everyone's taken a photo with uh, God knows who,
Yeah.
uh, and then it was my first time seeing a mosh pit. And I was trying to run into it, and this boy who my mother has entrusted me with is holding me back, saying, "No, don't go." And I'm like, "No, what is this cool thing?" And
You'll never forget your first mosh pit.
yeah, no, I didn't get to go into it.
Okay.
No, I was not allowed. He was stronger. Like he stopped
Yeah.
me, and then he got the others to convince me that it's a bad idea.
Right.
So, but it's the like the 14, 15-year-old young Mitra would still like every time I see a mosh, I think about that moment.
I love that.
So
I love that. I feel like the Weekender it was so many people's first music festival and the first experience with like so many cool live bands and artists that for me it was such a big discovery platform. Because like you're just absorbing as much as you can because you're young and like hormones are raging. And I remember being like, oh shit, I have no idea who any of these musicians are, who any of these acts are. And like I was lucky enough that I had friends who could kind of help me like guide my way and educate me
yeah.
into like knowing what to look out for, what to check out, what's worth going to, etc. But yeah, I really miss I just miss that newness of going to a festival. Like, hey, I really don't know any of these acts or these artists, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm willing to find and discover someone cool.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the Weekender also helped build a very interesting, build an interest and some sort of a marketability towards independent music,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? I mean, even though it was not technically, also it was not independent, but well, I mean the genre, right? When you
For
say that,
sure, for sure. Like my ex boss, I'm still really close to him. Page Brar. He was the festival director at NH7 Weekender for like a while. And I remember even back in the day, I think he was working with OML, who were the organizers at the time. And they did something really cool, which was really seminal and really groundbreaking at the time. Which was you know how like usually for these large scale festivals, the trend now is to book an international artist and they would headline the festival, right? Because of course, I mean now it's a lot more commonplace, especially this year, to have like 20 plus international artists come to India. But like circa 2016, 17, 18, like even if we got like one international hip hop act or a pop act, we were like, oh my god, that's such a huge deal, right? But I remember NH7 Weekender at the time, despite everyone trying to be like, hey, we want to get, I don't know, like an international DJ or anything, they decided that hey, our headlining act is going to be nuclear, right? We want an Indian act headlining an Indian festival, and that was amazing because like it set a cool platform for us to collectively kind of decide that hey, yeah, like our own artists are worthy of being headliners for a huge festival, and I kind of wish that that same approach is like brought back to a lot of current festivals.
Yeah, I get that, but I was actually, in fact, I was recording another episode with someone today, and we were talking about how there is a lack of embracing individual identity in when it comes to displaying your art, specifically in India. It has a lot of, oh, I want to be just like what you would see in the West. But then my counterpoint to that was that there is a lack of embracing identity because, or not just embracing it, there's a lack of people consuming art where identity is embraced and shown and very proudly displayed because people are not consuming it, they're not choosing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I even think about this often where it's like there is a really like there is something really beautiful about artists that are authentic, even though that term is a little bastardized. But like I think we naturally as listeners gravitate towards certain artists that you can immediately tell that they're not really putting up a front.
Yeah,
Like they kind of wear their influences on their sleeves very proudly, but they're not completely trying to like mimic, like their favorite hip hop artist or their
yeah,
favorite rapper or something. They and I really like there are a couple artists that I can think of off the top of my head who are really good at that, and in the sense that you can tell that hey, this person is clearly influenced by I don't know, maybe like old school jazz, or like they have a clearly a rock and roll persona to them, but they're not letting that kind of you're not trying to find the next Jimi Hendrix. You're
yeah.
trying to find someone that you're willing to bank your money on, but it's still in their own lane, so to say. But I think that's a good point. Like the whole I'm an artist from India or I'm an Indian artist divide is so like it's so easy to tell. Like you can kind of cut through that dichotomy very easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and it's also I feel like I don't know if it is it the responsibility of the audience to understand that the potential of the amount of untapped potential that the country has in terms of music specifically. Uh, a lot of it is not discovered too soon because you're not consuming it. You're not, when I say you're not consuming it, you have to also be open to exploring it, right? You have to be open to giving it a shot. Like you said, you go to a weekender, you go like, oh, like, I'm not, I want to see what's happening here. I remember my early weekender experiences. I would look at my favorite thing I do even in the library is that I'll be like, heard this, heard this, heard this, heard this. So if I'm going through someone's playlist, I'm like, heard this, heard this, heard this, heard
Yeah,
this. Right. So, and with the weekender, surprisingly, that happened quite a bit where I did not know a lot of the artists. So I would actually actively go listen to their songs, see what I like, see what I don't, do my own research, and then go. Even festivals that were done by Submerge, for example, with
yeah,
Supersonic, they did that for the electronic scene quite a bit.
absolutely. Yeah,
Right. And it was beautiful. Like it was, I think the first year that Supersonic happened in Pune was legendary in its own sense because it was also the first time Eric Pritz came to India.
yeah,
And he's famously known for being afraid of flying. And and I was working then and I was shooting at Supersonic and I was also and then he came and performed the Blue Frog, which was insane. It was one for the books because
yeah.
I could see all of India's underground music scene in one place.
Hell yeah.
Because to see, to get a taste of God, that's what it felt like. And it was so interesting. But then I feel like over time, like Supersonic tried to bring in uh live acts, or NS7 tried to bring a little more electronica in there,
Yeah.
right? But I don't know, somewhere I don't know if it was a hit or a miss. At some points, it felt like you were trying too hard to compete or whatever. But having said that, I really miss music festivals. So uh, Weekender used to happen near my house, and
Yeah.
I mean, I live in that area, in that township, so I used to call it Dandia Night because it
Yeah.
used to happen
It's
in my
backyard down there, right? Yeah.
yeah, I was like, it's mine, Dandia Night. Because I used to literally walk, and people would be struggling for parking, and I'd walk to it and walk back
Yeah.
home. Happily, it was quite an experience, and I think I feel like now there's been this lack of willingness to explore more or
Interesting.
take a
I mean,
risk on an artist who is not billable.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's definitely like it's how the community approaches music in general. I think that's a huge factor. But also, even like from an industry perspective, I think like think about it. The last couple of examples that we've kind of discussed have always been like live experiences. Like us going in person to events and witnessing music in a very direct way. Right, we're consuming whatever, even if it's artists and musicians that we've never heard of, we're still witnessing it live. And I feel like that essence is kind of being slowly bastardized, in my opinion, because the idea of live touring has kind of changed
Yeah.
right now than it was 5-10 years ago, in the sense that, like, I mean, we kind of we discussed this even within the industry itself, is that if you really look at the amount of concerts that happen in India, right, especially in 2025, there's a huge discrepancy in the scale. Either they're giant stadium shows, MSCI Dome, Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, giant festival grounds, etc., or they're your anti-socials, your smaller club shows, etc. The real problem is that you kind of, as an audience member, have to pick and choose, well, one, what you want to pay money for, and also the kind of artists that are willing to fit in those two options, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
indie artists may be delegated to a smaller venue size versus like bigger mainstream artists are delegated to larger stadiums, and there's no middle ground. Like, there's a huge void in the middle of what we like to call mid-tier artists. And not, I mean, I really don't want to come across as being offensive in using that term, but there are certain categories and audience categories that I feel like we gotta be able to meet those requirements as an industry. And I think the first step in doing that is making fucking venues, making venues, having venues available that are maybe dedicated towards just live music, and maybe bigger than 100 capacity, but not necessarily like a 4,000, 5,000 capacity. And like, especially from a musician's POV, like, you make the most amount of money, at least you should be making the most amount of money touring, like playing live shows. You get to connect with audience members in a more direct way. You get to build new audience members, because people like us are going to go there and be like, oh shit, I've never heard of this artist. Maybe I'm going to go back home and check it out, share it to a couple of my friends. So I feel like the more we encourage from an industry POV, the more we encourage artists to be able to gradually scale, rather than just be like, oh, I'm a underground indie artist, but like, I made a viral fucking Instagram reel track, and now suddenly I'm playing giant concert stadiums. Like, that shouldn't necessarily be the pipeline for success. There are much more structural ways that's more accessible to more artists and more young musicians. So yeah, I really feel like I don't know who the money makers are or who the people making these decisions are, but these mid-tier venues, I think, would be a great solution for people to just discover more talent.
Yeah, I get it. It's very interesting that you bring this up, because before this episode, I prepared a list of base questions that I wanted to cover with you. And one of the questions was, there is a gap between the independent and the risen. How wide is it right now, especially in terms of people being aware of the talents that we hold,
Yeah.
right? Uh, like for example, I'm trying to find an example that would hurt
Like,
anyone.
dude,
But
like, for example, like, even when I was first introduced, Indian indie music, right? It was through Peter Cat Recording Company. It was through Pratik Kuhad. It was through Lifafa. It was through the F16s. It was through when Chimito. Like all of these early 2000, like mid 2010s
Yeah.
artists. Like I remember it was such a like discovery, and knowing them was such a cool thing. Like if you find other people that knew these acts, you're immediately like, oh shit, like I can vibe with this person.
Yeah.
It almost felt like a community of itself. Even if they weren't performing, even if they weren't going on tour or anything, just being able to connect with another person, be like, hey, fuck, they know Indian independent artists as well.
Yeah.
That was in itself such a cool social thing that everyone could come together on. I think over time, that same effect became more widespread. More people knew Indian independent acts. The industry grew, discovery grew, and now it's less about, hey, here are certain Indian artists that I really find interesting. It's more about, it becomes a more like clicky thing where you have the Desi hip hop crew on in one corner, you have like the electronic crew in one corner, which is, I mean, that's very normal, that's very natural, it's bound to happen. But the discovery, the shareability is limited, in my opinion, to these small cliques, these small sectors. Whereas back in the day, it was all like, oh shit, there's only one Indian rapper, right? Or
Yeah.
there's one rapper rapping in Marathi or in Punjabi. When Prabdeep came, everyone was like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, that's the guy." You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Whereas now it's like you fucking throw a dart in Punjab and you'll hit a rapper. And not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just that now the gates are open, which is in many ways great, but it's also like the way in which we use discoverability as currency, in my opinion, has now completely changed. Like, it's more about, are you more knowledgeable about indie artists within your small niche subgenre? Whereas back in the day there were no niches, there were no subgenres, if that makes sense.
It does. It's very interesting because that's another question I have, which was, what do you think about genre elitism, right? That comes into play. But for example, there's this thing that I used to have, and I still somewhere I hold that is whatever you think is cool now, I did 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, and it applies to a lot of fads that one would say today, and then people like, oh, have you tried this? I was like, yeah, in 2018. Like, just
Yeah.
relax. Like but for example, there's like the Pratik Kuhad analogy, right? Did you know Pratik Kuhad pre-cold mess or post-cold mess? Right.
Dude, I knew of him pre Coal Mess because when I was in college, we had booked him to perform at one of our university, like Battle of the Band cultural festival things. And I was aware that he is an artist and he's a really big, or at least he's on his way to become a really big singer songwriter from India. But I had no idea the amount of just fandom, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think I was a little naive to the fact that, oh, like, oh, sure, he's just like another singer songwriter. I really had no idea until he came to our university that I realized, oh, like, I'm not the only one who knows of this guy.
Yeah.
Like everyone or most of the people around my socioeconomic group, around my, just within my vicinity, kind of really have an idea of who this guy is. And that, I think that kind of changed how I approached thinking about Indian music, where I was like, hey, I'm not it's not just me and three of my friends that are fucking with Peter Cat. It's like people are hungry, or have tried to make the step towards discovery that I had made in my own way, but they've gone through their own journey in doing that as well. And I think that's so important. The idea of, like, before Spotify playlists were really a thing, before like algorithms were really a thing, like the idea of raw discovery and then word of mouth being the method to which it's spread, it's so powerful, and that holds so much value that I guess I took for granted when it was happening.
Yeah.
And it's really tied into, like, it's tied into the idea of coolness. It's tied into the idea of, hey, like, this is something that we find really engaging, and it's something just for us. And as soon as another community kind of fits into that, it kind of changes the dynamics. And I feel like now because I can literally open up an app and I can find, or I can be told what is similar to the music I like, has kind of ruined the experience in so many ways. Like, I
But
don't really want a corporation telling me that here are 12 other artists that we're pushing from a label point of view that you should like, you know, rather than the sort of natural aspect of being like, hey, here is here is a Tamil rapper that you've never heard of before. But this is something that you found by yourself, and then you're more inclined to tell all of your friends, you know, whereas it feels weird when an algorithm kind of suggests it for you, you know?
yeah, I get that. But I understand that. But I feel like even way before algorithms, there were ways to discover new music. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I don't remember the name of the website. But there was this one website where, let's say, you put Katy Perry, right? It will give you 5 artists who are similar to Katy Perry,
Yeah.
right? So that you can find more artists who are like this one artist. So, and that sort of changed how I would like to discover music. Or, at one point I started going into the rabbit hole of subgenres and discovering more subgenres. Like, for example, now when I'm listening to house, for example, I can tell the difference between what house it is, right? And I know which one I like and which one I'm not a fan of. How do you discover music, and how do you discover new music?
I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm really now sort of I really enjoy and love the Spotify algorithm because it's kind of worked in a way that fits my taste.
Hmm.
And a lot of other platforms, I mean, I have so many criticisms of Spotify as a company, but just I think they've kind of nailed catering the right kind of sounds to me personally. And I feel like everyone kind of has that experience. But I remember growing up, like even watching a lot of long format video content on TV, like your MTVs, your VH1s. Like there was even in the Indian sort of um, in the Indian broadcasting, like there were so many cool shows. There were so many like YouTube channels and like people doing really cool, like wacky out there YouTube videos that were like, wow, like fuck, there is a community, and it's not even that far out of reach, you know. Like I remember there were these P-Man Rohit Pereira from VH1. He would do these in Pune only. I think he would be doing these terrace sessions where like really cool bands like the Family Cheese, like Thermal and a Quarter, like who else? Like Light Years Explode, like these old like Bombay, Pune, punk
Yeah.
bands, rock bands would all go and perform. Tejas Menon, like all of these older guys would go there, and they were just. I mean, it was a bit of a it was a more DIY kind of vibe. Everyone was kind of hustling at the time. But for me, like as like a 15, 16-year-old, I was like, yo, this is the coolest shit ever, right? And that kind of going into people doing like a lot of vox pop interviews when they're at festivals. I remember IIM Ahmedabad had this really big metal or like rock and metal music festival, like a college festival called Chaos
Okay.
at IIM. And I
Chaos with a
remember
K?
Chaos with a K,
Chaos
Chaos with a
with
K.
I had a guess. It just came.
Yeah.
I could tell.
And like I remember because growing up in Ahmedabad, like getting access to IIM Ahmedabad's campus
Yeah.
was very rare. Like they
Yeah.
wouldn't really let generally people in, except when you have a ticket for the music festival. And like I was never a metalhead growing up, but I remember having the best fucking time. Because it's like, and that to me that kind of connects a lot to why I kind of really like and will defend the idea of genre, because like in a way it's so much more than just the music that you end up tying it to. It's like it goes to the kind of people that gravitate towards that sound, the kind of clothes that they wear, the way that they talk, the reason why they choose to behave a certain way versus other ways. And I think early on in our formative years, we kind of naturally gravitate towards certain things that we like,
Yeah.
and but then there are also so many people that are confused as fuck. Like I remember when my taste in music, even at an early age, was so like fucking weird. I think because of just like our experiences, our ways of just developing, that you just end up naturally liking a wide variety of music. And I remember like one of my friends who kind of, he's a really big musician now. I mean, his name's Chirag Todi. We went to high school together. He's a great guitarist, and he
Performed
was
yesterday at High Spirits.
Get Out. Yeah, dude. Yeah,
I
him.
think
So
so.
we went to high school together, and I remember like he was the only one in our ninth grade class at the time that heard of like fucking Eric Clapton or like
Yeah,
John Mayer or like Radiohead or anything, and we were the only ones who could be like, oh shit, like we have something to talk about with each other.
yeah,
But then I'd have another friend completely different who was the only one who knew of like Yo-Yo Honey Singh, who
yeah,
knew of Raftar, like early Raftar.
yeah,
And you'd be like, oh shit, like I clearly have a different way of approaching these two different friend circles.
yeah,
Um, and then like I think somehow over time that same, like you kind of cling on to those ideas, those virtues, where and what I mean to say is that genre in itself helps to make that more accessible. Like you're more likely to know the kind of people who are going to go to a fucking Yo-Yo Honey Singh gig, or to a Gully Gang show, or to a Pratik Kuwar show. You can immediately tell the kind of audience that will be there, and that informs the decision you make as to buying a ticket, as to choosing to buy merchandise, choosing to even take along certain friends versus others. So I
yeah,
feel like we owe a lot to genre, and I feel like a lot of musicians now, I mean, I get it, like the idea of fluidity in making music is so prominent, and that is beneficial. Like I feel like there is a lot of benefit in not having these strict sort of cookie cutter, guidelines or boundaries. But I feel like we do benefit from knowing which corners we kind of fit into. What do you think? Like, because like I know, like with the electronic music space, it's so it is fluid, but it's also so distinct. Like the house fans and bass fans, they will still you'll still might find them in the same gig, but why certain sounds are more
yeah.
cooler than others.
I so the reason I asked about elitism, right, is that around me, I mean, I'm not. I've had the pleasure of and privilege of being around some of the best talents, not just in the country but in the world also, who come down to Pune, who people did not hear about until much later, right?
Yeah.
But then I saw this air that some would have over others, saying, oh, like for example, I mean, I also am partly responsible for that, because when I was younger, I remember when Fireflies by Owl City came out, I was like, who makes music on a MacBook? Like, it's
Yeah.
not music, right? But then
You would
eventually,
not believe your eyes.
pardon?
You would not believe your eyes.
Yeah, and I thought I didn't consider it music. I liked the song, but I hated that I liked it.
Yeah.
Right? And eventually, I remember I tried to discover electronica, and I remember I would sit and there was this one song, and it's very interesting because that one song, I heard it and I really love it. It's called Manoto by New. I think he's Turkish, if I'm not wrong. And but I heard it and I really liked it. I'll probably send it to you later on. But I remember I heard it in 2015, if I'm not wrong, 2015, 2016. And in 2020, I had picked up Persian. So while I was studying, I saw the words man and to, which means me and you in Persian. And then I realized that that's actually a poem by Rumi.
Okay.
And then I went back to the lyrics of the song, and it's so beautiful. It talks about how we are separate geographically, but we are one,
Yeah.
right? Like it just changed how I looked at it. Uh,
I love
but
that. Yeah.
I mean, I would like to believe that I'm quite genre agnostic now, where I not only, I'm not averse to genres. Maybe I can't hear the 8-bit stuff a lot, but like I will listen to anything from classical opera to high tech and enjoy
And
it.
sorry to interrupt, but like that term, I don't know. I have a weird relationship with the term genre agnostic, only because like you can only know what you like or dislike after you've kind of understood the criteria under which it falls into. You know what I mean? Like I know I'm not the biggest, for example, like I'm not the biggest hard techno fan, industrial techno fan, because I know what fits under that subgenre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think what I mean to say is that the idea of genre agnosticism kind of it's dependent on also being kind of aware of what separates so many genres and so many
Yeah.
subgenres, and like I remember, I think all of it kind of uh, takes a leap from what we listen to when we're like in our adolescence or late adolescence,
Yeah.
because those that's also a really formative year when you're socially understanding, where you fit, who you like, who you dislike. And
Yeah.
I think that same idea of social in circle, out circle stuff moves into people's music decision. I feel like most people are genre agnostic. Like you won't find a lot of people who are strictly like, oh, I breathe. I mean, actually, maybe with hip hop that might have changed, but like you rarely find people who are like, oh, I only fucking listen to, you know, I don't know, like fucking like bass music, for example.
Yeah.
You'll find most people generally like 80 to 90% have a somewhat wide, or large net when it comes to the music that they consume, but they do gravitate towards certain genres, and I feel like that is so emblematic of you know who you are as a person, who you choose to interact with, the kind of the way you spend your money, more importantly, and I feel like in India, especially, we're in a weird like we're in that same adolescent phase, in my opinion. I feel like we're very as an industry, as a community, as people making music, because we've had a taste of like gigantic success, especially in the last like 6 7 months, right?
Yeah.
With your Hanuman Kinds, with your Diljeets, we've had the taste of what it could be like to be a really really huge powerhouse in the global music space. But at the same time, we kind of don't have most of our shit figured out and how we want to keep it going.
Yeah.
Like it's happened kind of by luck that we've managed to have these breakout stars here and there, but most other nations and most other societies have already figured out their pipelines to get artists from point A to point B. There is a rubric, so to say, that uh, big record labels, that big recording companies can kind of choose to navigate through. India has tried that. Like we definitely have, um, those facilities, but I feel like we're kind of just hoping for the best. And even listeners are like, yeah, man, like I want to be that guy to be like to be able to tell people that yeah, I listened to, I don't know, Diljit before he blew up. I listened to Hanuman Khan before he was a fucking superstar. But we really don't know when we're going to be able to say that. We don't know when. Like today, I could be listening to a underground artist, and it's very likely that tomorrow they might end up being a huge star. But as a consumer, we have no like compass to kind of figure or predict that.
I mean, I would disagree. I would speak for yourself because so the thing is, I pride myself a little bit in this. Is that I don't know why or how, but I can sort of I hear someone and I know if they're going to make it or not.
Yeah. So
I
what would you think are the factors that help you kind of at least have an idea of that?
a decisive understanding of what you were performing because somebody I know once differentiated saying that I am a musician but I'm not a performer,
Yeah.
right?
Interesting. They're a musician,
So
but they're not a performer.
yeah, like there's a difference between a musician and a performer. Like for
Yeah.
example, Bijoy, who uh directed Hanuman Kain's videos. I have a very funny Hanuman Kain story, but I remember I met him through a friend, and at that time he believed in Hanuman Kind,
Yeah.
right? And this was like years ago. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll listen to it, whatever. I heard some of the stuff he put up, and I was like, oh, it's interesting. But it was not that music that made me realize that this person will become famous at some point. I just don't know when. It was in the moment of in understanding the passion that not just his friend, his consumer, the
Yeah.
consumer of his music had in the music and the beliefs and the faith they had in it. Uh, like I've, I don't know. It's a lot of these factors. Like there's just something in when you're listening to the song, you're like,
Yeah.
this is going to stick, or
Yeah.
this style, if this person changes it up even a little bit, it will stick. Right, but
I
whether or
agree.
not I have access to them to recommend my unsolicited opinions is very different. But someone once complimented me and told me, "Oh, you should get into A&R."
dude. But I mean, like that's so valid because, like, believe it or not, most, if not, I would say at least 75% of decisions being made at a very, very top level in the Indian industry. At least I can't really speak for uh, global industries, but in Indian, like your three biggest record labels right now, like your Sony, Warner, and Universal. I'm not even kidding when I say that the ANRs at those levels are also basing they're hedging their bets and then making these predictions basis the same sort of intangible sort of, that factor that we struggle to kind of explain for certain artists. When you say that you kind of have a feeling, you have a gut feeling that this artist will make it big, that is literally one of the biggest, like, decisions that people at a very top level have to make. That, say, you can tick all the boxes in terms of, your branding is on point, right? You're musically very sound, you're tight when it comes to your live performances, you're able to songwrite in a way that that can meet a large demographic of audiences, not just, one age category or one gender category or whatever. You have a sort of larger net that you cast, but it's that small intangible it factor that separates, your biggest artist from your smaller artists. And I feel like so many people in the industry, and so many, not just like even people who are beneficiaries of the industry, like people who work as session musicians, people who work as graphic design, like a lot of the bet that they have, the risk that they have to take is basis this weird intangible factor. So I totally get why a lot of people struggle to be like, I know, I have a feeling that this person can make it, but either they have not or will not, for a myriad of other slightly more basic reasons. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to name a lot of artists right now, but I know so many artists that I thought initially were like, oh shit, they have the hustle, they have the passion, they have the vision, but they don't make it. You're left wondering, like, oh, was it because they didn't know how to brand themselves? Were they bad at marketing? Were they not good at, like, fucking just being a sociable person? There's so many factors that you end up retroactively putting onto them as to why they didn't make it.
Or do they have a bad manager? But
Do they have a bad manager? Yeah. Did
but
they
because
choose the wrong person to have in the corner and shit?
yeah, I mean, the reason I say that, and I won't, I mean, I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I'm certain of my skill in being able to do that is because it's happened to me thrice, right? So, for example, and the person who told me that I should get into ANR was funnily Ritviz. And because
Okay, crazy.
I sent him this artist who I discovered on Spotify. And I invited, funnily, how I got to know this artist was I sent him a message saying, do you want to come on my podcast? And
Nice.
now that so this artist is from Pakistan, and the reason I
Can I guess? Can I just guess? Is it Manu?
yeah
Dude, I was doing my research. I was looking at your other interviews and stuff, and I saw Manu, and I was like, I can't believe that you interviewed him because, I'm sorry to interrupt, but now that he's big in, I think he signed with Universal or something.
mhm,
His A&R had reached out to me when I was at Rolling Stone India to interview him
yeah
for, like, one of his releases. So I was like,
yeah
oh, that's what I remember this guy. But yeah, sorry, continue.
yeah. So and funnily, how I discovered him was so he has this song called Darwaze. Okay. And the reason I got attracted to that track is funnily it was in some indie playlist, and I was looking at Indie, and somehow he's shown up there, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, I don't know how that happened, but which is great for me because he wrote Darwaze as you know how we write Darwaze in India when we write Darwaze.
He
Why?
writes with EIM.
No, he wrote AY.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh,
So
correct,
that
correct. As a
just
Pakistani sort of Urdu
yeah,
way.
it was just that. It's also a very North Indian way of writing Hindi, of transliterating the
Right,
language.
right,
It's
right,
very
right.
common in the North, and that's what attracted me to that song to click on it. And when I heard it,
Interesting.
oh my God, that song! So that song is not his most famous song. It is one of his earlier songs.
Yeah.
And but when I heard that song, so when I say that, it's not when I say gut feeling, it comes from a space where when I'm hearing the song, I can tell that the way the artist is performing, are they sure of themselves?
Hmm.
Are they certain of themselves? Are they certain of what they're doing? And also with the song in particular, I was like, is this something anybody else I would introduce to? Would this be the song I would introduce an artist through?
Okay.
Right?
Like, would
Does it
this be a
fit?
good representation of who they are as an
Yes.
artist?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I had sent it to a friend and I sent it to a few friends and they're like, oh my God, this is insane or whatever. And I had sent Ritviz this track. I was like, you need to collaborate with this guy.
Yeah.
And I remember I had sent it to him a long time ago. And I'm luckily I'm the first Indian man who I ever interacted with. So,
Okay.
and
Hell,
he funnily also studied politics.
I
And,
love it. Look at
and
this, just all everyone on SWS.
yeah. And yeah, and eventually, and then I remember this messaged me back saying when Joel came out with Coke
Mhm.
Studio, he was like, Sangha, you sent me this person and I have realized what has happened. And
Yeah.
so it's a very, I don't know why, when you hear someone, or when you watch them perform, you can tell are they being performative or are they actually owning it.
I totally get it, but like I keep going back to that. Like it is this weird intangibility, though, don't you think? Like it's like I totally get what you mean in the sense that you kind of immediately can get when someone's clearly putting up a front, or they're trying to maybe be someone that they aren't,
Yeah.
versus an artist that you can immediately, without having to kind of be like slowly creeped into, you can immediately tell that, hey, this person is coming from a position of their own life experiences or their own artistry, so to say. And that recognition comes quite quickly, right? Especially when it's genuinely coming from a place of authenticity. But like I feel like for audience members, like that's such a subjective thing, like for us, like for example, like the fact that you were able to listen to Manu's track and immediately you could tell that, hey, there is something about this artist. Maybe it's the way that they write, maybe it's the way that they choose to structure their music, maybe it's just the decisions they make in instrumentation, or there could be so many reasons why it just hit a chord in you, right? Versus it could be a whole other category of reasons why it hit a chord in someone else,
Yeah.
you know and I feel like that difference is where it kind of rests in, that intangibility of whether you think someone has that star power, that ability to be successful, comes in that kind of gray space, and I'm really, to this day, like I mean, work the industry kind of corrupts the way in which you approach music as a base art, in my opinion. But I feel like this has still been a struggle. Like it's been such a struggle for me to identify why exactly is it that we choose to gravitate towards a particular artist and have that ability to confidently say that, hey, yeah, like, I think they're gonna make it. That's why I don't envy A&Rs at all. Like it's a tough job. It's a really difficult gamble, and
Yeah.
more times than not, like I'd say 9 out of 10 times, unfortunately, you're wrong. The success ratio of music as a career, being a musician, is very low. So it's the times when you do hit a really really large success, it feels bigger than it normally does, because it's so rare for someone to actually make it.
I get that, but like for example, with Manu's example, so he blew up a lot more in Pakistan, particularly, which eventually got him Coke Studio, right? Or eventually was the road to Coke Studio for him. Was the song called For You,
Hmm.
and I don't like For You, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I don't dislike it, but I still think Darwaze was like
His
the
better track.
best, much
Yeah.
better. Uh, there was something about the beat, there was something about like he knew how to get my heart.
Yeah.
And but then now there's a difference here where when I say that when we're talking about authenticity, I would like to bring up that there's a difference between being authentic to your identity versus can you be authentic to your sound, right?
What do you mean? Sorry, elaborate.
Like in the sense that do I sense you faltering somewhere when I'm listening to you? It's kind of like a set, like a stand-up set. Like,
Right.
are you going to be authentic to your comedy, or can you come up with your own style that is signature, or are you
Gotcha.
faltering somewhere trying to mimic someone else,
Interesting.
right?
Okay.
But
And
when I
how's
say
that different from identity?
uh, being authentic to your identity, for example, would be Like, let's say with hip hop, I'm authentic. So if there's a rapper who's from Pune, for example,
Yeah.
right? Are they authentic to their identity or are they authentic to their signature sound,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah. Are you really from where
There's
you claim to be from?
no, it's not that. I think that there's a difference. When you're saying you're embracing your identity, it can show in your sound.
Okay.
But if your
Yeah.
sound is stable, right, and
Hmm.
if you are assured of yourself, it shows in your work.
I totally
Like
agree.
if there's a
Yeah.
certain level of half-heartedness or a feeling of, oh, I think you're trying too hard at one point,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
For example, if you want to think of it at a very massive level, J-Lo, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm going completely not even India, but she's a performer through and through.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
probably not put her in the category of a musician,
Yeah.
but
I get it.
there's a difference of J-Lo from Jenny from the Block, which is one of my favorite tracks of hers,
Yeah. Hell yeah.
to her being in to even on the floor with Pitbull.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There's a difference in the sound as you can tell that you are actually pandering.
Right. Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
But are you pandering because it is going to make you marketable? Are you pandering because, or are you doing it because it is actually going to enhance your talent? So
Yeah.
when I'm listening to
Absolutely.
an artist, I don't know why. It's a very weird sixth sense that comes. And maybe I'm also being a little vain because I don't do it for a living. But like there's this artist, I don't know if you've heard of him called Axomaniac.
Say that again. Sorry.
Axomaniac.
I love Axomaniac from Kerala, I think.
Yeah, and moved to Bombay, engineer.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
Really talented. I saw him at Rap 91, Spotify's Rap 91. Killed it.
I discovered it on Instagram.
Hell
And
yeah.
then I heard a song and I heard the Papam review and it had not come out yet. So I just followed him and kept it. I was like, whenever it comes, I'll see it. And it'll, if it's
Yeah.
meant to be in my life. Now, Papam is Malayalam and Marathi together, right? For me, those are two different parts of my identities. And
Right.
but then you can go so wrong with it also. You can be
Hmm.
appropriating, you can be pandering to the stereotype, you could be doing so much, but there is something in his voice that I know, which is also, it's no joke to be signed by Universal. I think he's with Universal now. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
or to even get Def Jam. And it's just, there is something in them. Like you don't have to see them to know it. You just have to like, if my eyes are shut, the point is that if my eyes are shut, when I'm hearing you, will I be able to recognize you when there is a crowd with just really loud and there's like one random song playing?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I look for, right? Uh, and
Like, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's all. I mean, I was going to move on, but go ahead.
I mean, just like, I mean, sorry to circle back to Dhanji, but like the reason why I'm such a huge fan of his, personal
No,
relationship aside,
you
I
didn't
feel like,
circle back. That was in the test recording.
oh,
Please,
sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
I just for context, I was telling Aaryaman that at one point I thought his Instagram was a Dhanji fan page.
So, I mean, I remember, being from Ahmedabad, right? Being from Gujarat, rather, not even just Ahmedabad, there was never any representation. And I never even thought of representation as something that I needed, to be very honest. I was very satisfied with being represented as a Indian. I'm happy to have Hindi musicians. I'm happy to have people coming from India. And that I feel like I was very satisfied with that as a consumer, right? Until of course, Zanji came into the radar. And I remember, like in the city, a lot of his early releases were very classic hip hop. Your run of the mill sort of, very inspired by your Emiways, by your Raftars, and it was a very traditional hip hop DHH approach. Until over time, that really, like Dhanji's sound especially, really evolved in a way that I don't think anybody saw coming. Right, when with the release of his album Ruab in 2023, that genuinely changed. Like I'm very rarely like mind blown when
Yeah,
it comes to Indian album releases. I can probably count on
same.
like one hand the amount of times that these, like, people don't really do thematic projects anymore.
Yeah,
Nobody does a themed album
or a
any longer.
narrative based album.
Yeah, like that's not really cool anymore. And it's a very like 1980s, early 90s kind of approach where you'd have like rock operas had a clear, distinct narrative, beginning, middle, end. And when Danji dropped Ruab, which was his, I think it's his debut LP, it was so fucking fascinating because there were three things that stuck out to me. One was that it was, of course, it's a hip hop album, but it's a hip hop with a funk influence. Now, nobody has ever attempted funk as a genre to dip their toes in, especially in the Indian POV, because it's fundamentally a Western genre. It's fundamentally it's grown out of a lot of Southern, primarily African American sounds, and it's really difficult for Indian sensibilities, in my opinion, to kind of gravitate towards that. And to then see an artist from, first of all, my own community be able to incorporate that in his own fucking way. That's one factor. The introduction of funk, like it's very like old, like like Funkadelic, like Dan Brown, like all these older sort of 1970s influences are very visible in his. And the second thing was that it's a very personal album in the sense that his songwriting, you can only get it if you're from the city. You know what I mean? Like I feel like him as an artist, the reason why I'm so personally involved in it is because most people that listen to Dhanji cannot fucking understand a word that he says. It's because even though he's still rapping in Hindi, it's it's an Ahmedabad dialect of like Gujarati Hindi, right? That is so unique to not just my city, but a specific part of my city, you know? And like then coupled with his own like weird flow, like his flow is so unique in the sense that it's like Jay-Z, like Jay-Z in the Blueprint, like early, like I'm talking like 2000, 2001 Jay-Z. It was so like it was I'm struggling with the way to describe it. It was off the cuff, but it's also like he knows what he's saying, but it's almost like he's rambling out of his mouth, So that coupled with being from Ahmedabad, and then the third thing is the subject matter. The subject matter that this guy talks about in his debut funk album, is fucking like kind of like it's really deep and personal. Like he's talking about his father having alcohol abuse issues, having to go in and out of jail, and that's kind of like I don't want to diminish it and call it a trope, but we've heard that narrative in a lot of hip hop. The way in which I feel like Dhanji kind of shifted it is that he made it about the bureaucratic processes that he had to endure as a son, going in and out of like police thalas, going in and out of like government offices to like bail people out, And I feel like even the album artwork is literally like a notary note, of him having, it's a bail note of trying to get his father out of jail. Like that's fucking insane. Like I'm trying to think of anyone else who's melded. I can think of one other artist who's doing that right now, and I feel like that's Excise Department. Like it's like a melding of formats. It's not just genres anymore. It's like your album artwork matches your live performance, matches your merchandise, matches your fucking flow. It's like all of these weird mediums are now coming together, and they've delivered you a handcrafted product that you will not, like, nobody can replicate that. No matter how hard you try, it will be practically impossible to replicate that.
Yeah.
And I feel like it fundamentally comes from a philosophy that he kind of has adopted, which is that I know what audiences want from me. Like he's like, I know audiences want me to be XYZ, but I'm not gonna give that to you. Like I will actively try my best to keep on throwing a curveball, because I feel like audiences are kind of dumb in general. Like most audiences do not know what they want until it's given to them in a silver platter. And I feel like that's, again, to tie back to our idea of discovery, it's that I think we need more artists to be so self-assured in their, like you said, like their identity and their performances and their sound, for them to be like, I know exactly what is going to do something that's going to strike that intangible chord in audiences that even they don't know, and more artists that are that self-assured are likely to probably be like memorable, if not successful, then at least memorable.
Yeah, like I agree with you on that because, for example, when I say that, right, or if I'm watching artists like Puna has come up with so many. I mean, circling back to Ritwik because we went to school together and I heard
Over.
a lot of his earlier tracks which are not available anymore. So, and I used to have them as MP3s,
Yeah.
and I've seen how the sound has evolved. And there is, for me, it's also a very personal thing because it's just not just someone I know or someone I went to school with, it's also a friend. But at the same time, I also understand people who tell me that they don't like his sound,
Mm. Yeah.
right? But now there is a difference is that when I see artists and when I say, oh, I can tell if this person's going to, make it to a certain extent or go really big, is when I will genuinely tell them that I think you're going to go really big,
Right.
right? Like I'll be like, mark my words, one day this will happen.
Yeah.
And but with other people or with other artists who are still figuring it out, I don't want to say that they're not there yet because I don't believe that anybody cannot be there yet. You will not be on the journey if you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So, but with them, I will let them know that I like their music. Whether or not your music needs work is a very different question,
For
or
sure.
your performance needs work is a very different question. And it's not an easy thing to create, to produce, to compose. And it's not easy to, time and again, a lot of these people have started out with performing at venues where people don't want to listen to them,
Yeah.
right? It's a very, it starts out as something that's very thankless. And, and then it moves on. But I will, like I will listen to a song and then I will sort of, I don't know, I'll just skip ahead and be like, do I like this? No. Or go back. Like, is there
Yeah.
something that's holding me onto this and
100%. I do
anchoring
that
me
all
to
the time. Like, just go a little ahead, see if like a verse makes sense, and then decide if you like want to continue listening.
Yeah, unless I'm hooked on from the very beginning. Right. Like,
Right.
for example, the day I discovered Axomaniac is also the day I discovered this young boy. I think he's 19 or 20 years old, and his name's called Chokli Rapper. Okay. He's all
What's his name? Chokli.
Chokli, Chokli Rapper. And he has this song called Nidra. And
Okay.
oh my God, that the sound in that, the kind
Zombie?
of, yes. I don't know if there's a H there, but I don't remember that.
Sure,
But
sure, sure.
uh, but the sound that he has and the assurance as a performer, that if you see his videos where he's regularly talking, you will not be able to tell that that's the same guy.
Yeah.
But it's the cadence, it's the rhythm, and it's the way, and it's like it's in Malayalam, and you may not understand the language, but when you hear it, it's
Yeah.
very it will hold you, like it will hold your attention. And then I have this habit. I'll just send them a message saying, hey, what's up, I really liked your song,
Yeah.
right? Like I'll start with that. I mean, with Manu I directly just when I come on my pod,
Come on,
but
podcast, bro.
please
Yeah.
come. And it was no, that was lovely. And his manager Sikandar is also awesome. Uh, so I can't access his music in India on
Yeah. Nobody can, dude.
or his page. Like
Yeah.
it's not there. But I'm very furious about it. But anyway, uh, yeah. So with this boy, I messaged him and I just gave him a little unsolicited advice, saying that
Yeah.
maybe try putting up a music video or like a lyric video, if not a music video. And he said, I don't have the money to do it. I
Mm.
spent all my money in just producing this one single.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me that even potential or untapped potential it remains untapped because either the system is not very fair to them of how it has become, uh,
Right.
or access is not easy,
Mm.
right? Like when you say that there was a rubric, there's a pipeline in place.
Yeah.
Is that pipeline in place for the people marketing and distributing the music, or is it in place for people being like, hey, come listen to my music?
Interesting. Well, okay, I feel like maybe a good way to answer that would be that like the idea of the costs, like if you were to make a budget sheet for what a musician has to incur if they even want to release one song, right? And by one song I mean the bells and whistles, right? Like you've released a song, you've put it on your DSPs, your distribution service platforms, your Spotify, your Apple Music, etc. And you also have a music video, and you also have maybe a plan in mind for how you want to market it, right? Like maybe you want to make a couple reels, maybe you want to do a certain things on social media to help push and market your music, right? To do that one thing for one song, roughly on average for an up and coming musician, could cost anywhere between 20 to like 35,000 rupees, depending of course on the scale. Like say you want to hire musicians, maybe you don't know how to play the bass and you want to hire a bassist. Maybe you don't know how to mix and master it, so you send it to a friend of yours who's going to take a nominal fee. Maybe you want someone to help take care of your editing for your videos, you take it off to someone. So on average, it would cost somewhere in that ballpark range. Of course, there are ways to get it done cheaper. There's ways to make it more expensive as well. Now, say you take that average and you have to kind of figure out, how am I going to start making my money back? I've spent all this money now, right? Now I'm in a loss, right? There's practically no way in my head that I have thought of to make my money back. I don't know how to go on tour, right? Say I'm a young new musician. I don't have the contacts. I don't have the the network to allow me to get a show to perform. Maybe I have never practiced with a band. Maybe I've never practiced even performing in front of a crowd, right? I've only been in my home studio and I've made this music, right? So that's one obstacle in itself. And another obstacle would be like, if I don't know how to tour, then I'm solely depending on the money that I might be making from my Spotify streams, from my Apple Music streams, to maybe make my money back. Now, Spotify pays somewhere in the ballpark of 0.0000002 rupees
Apple
per
pays
single
the
stream,
most. Yeah.
right? And so the number you have to hit to make your money back is in the hundreds of millions, like at least a million, somewhere around there. So there's no practical way in which you're going to sustain that. So that, unfortunately, that same position is the plight of so many musicians in the country, in the world, right? The problem is that is the exact moment when labels step in, right? And in a lot of countries, there's a burgeoning culture of small labels, indie labels, so to say. That used to be the case in India, but that's kind of gone away. It's not really popular to have an indie label now as much as it was, say, like 4 or 5 years ago. Most labels are now usually either a part of the big three, or they're just operating independently and they don't have the capital to invest in these smaller artists. But if they do decide that, hey, you know what, I know that you're struggling to, cover the cost of one single release. How about I front that to you? I'm going to give you your 30K. I'm going to even give you another 10,000 rupees so that you're comfortable with this relationship, right? On the condition being that now I own a percentage of your music, right? And that's where the problem begins, is that ownership is then a slippery slope into a lot of nefarious practices that big label and big operations kind of indulge in, such as owning more than 50% of your song in two ways: in your masters, in your publishing, deciding how and when they can get their money back in recoupments, deciding how you are going to market your song, choosing which markets to approach to. Then it opens a gate for having influence over every small decision that composes your artistry. So that is unfortunately where the music industry makes its most amount of money from. It's not really in streaming, at least not in the scale that we're talking about. It's really in ownership. And
Yeah.
ownership is the biggest way in which the industry people end up making money. And in a lot of cases, I'm not going to lie, it does work. Like we have countless examples of people who have benefited from the label pipeline, right? The biggest artists right now are benefiting from the label pipeline, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that, again, they're hedging their bets as well. The labels don't know whether this artist is gonna be able to make the money back. It's not really about making it in the way that we as consumers think of it. Like this whole conversation we had about their star power, their ability, their authenticity, is not a big thing that labels are really keeping in mind. They're thinking about, can I make my money back?
And consistently at that.
And consistent. Can I keep making money and keep, suckling from the teat of this cash
Yeah.
cow, right? And the problem is that we're still new to this entire economy. We're still new to figuring out the best practices to make it one ethical, to make it one equitable for not just the artists, but the artist team, they have to hire graphic designers, video editors, fucking managers, tour managers, the whole shebang, right? So as of now, we're still that's what I meant to say in the fact that the industry is so caught up in the possibility of that one, overnight success that we've never thought of laying down the frameworks and the track works for making sure that, hey, maybe there's a way to do this in a way that is sustainable. There is a way to make money as a large corporation, but also to not screw over your artists in the process. Like, for example, like a lot of artists that I've worked with, when they shift from one label to another, the ownership of those songs also moves, and the decision making powers get to decide whether your songs get to stay on certain platforms versus others. So, like, for example, like, I mean, maybe I shouldn't name this, but like there are instances where people's artists' entire discographies have been taken down just because a label has decided that, oh, you don't work with us anymore. That's not really my problem,
Yeah.
and unfortunately that's like that's a business. That is how the cookie crumbles. That's how things operate. And when everyone in the sort of circumstance starts deciding in a way that only benefits their bottom line, is when instances like, like your like Taylor Swift having being bound, or Britney Spears being bound by
I
her
was just
manager
thinking about
for
that.
years,
When you
right?
said
Like Taylor not
master,
getting a master's back from Scooter Braun. Like those instances, as much as we kind of think of those as very distant and can only happen to like your Taylors of the world, your Britneys of the world, like no, that is happening as we speak right now to artists that we all know and love. So it's really fucked. Like, and it's only gonna get worse unless we decide like it's an identity crisis that we're going through. Right? We have to really put our heads down and be like, oh, how are we going to work? How are we going to operate? How are we going to be fair and equitable in our business decisions, or are we going to not give a fuck, essentially?
yeah, I mean, you said that one would want it to be ethical and equitable. But I want to ask, do you think that there is space for being empathetic also? Or is it happening, or is there a
Interesting.
need for it to happen in terms of not just uh,
Like empathetic towards musicians, or
in within the ecosystem towards each other, to understand where you're coming from, and to have that space, and give yourself or give the person a buffer. I'm not saying just the giving the artist a buffer. I'm saying giving the label a buffer, saying, oh, okay, I get where you're coming from. I mean, obviously taking down discographies is a very different uh, ball game, but, or I mean, it's not ethical, but yeah, that empathy, that, oh, you worked hard on this, so maybe we
yeah.
can find a way to find middle ground.
That's a great question, and I think I'd really like to highlight there is a community of uh, people within the industry, like people who work at labels, managers, musicians, and more especially lawyers. There is a huge community of lawyers that are so like Sandhya Surendran, for example, Priyanka Khimani to a very large extent. Like there are some really big players who are actively trying to make transparency a bigger factor, where most artists, it doesn't, and to be honest, there's nothing really wrong per se about entering a label deal. When you're in need of money, sometimes that initial loan, if you think about it as a loan, can really help. It can help propel you to a different category in your career, and that's really beneficial to people in their early 20s, in their late teens, where they're like, hey, I don't have the wherewithal to really expand and commit to this as a career. So a label offering me, like a 50,000 rupee loan to make my art can actually be beneficial, right? The problem becomes in the fine print. When they don't know what they're getting into, the kind of deals that they're getting into.
Yeah.
That's when the naivety ends up becoming a bane. It becomes a prick in their ass, where they're like, oh shit, if I had someone to educate me about a sunset clause, about knowing what the difference between a master's and a publishing split is, about knowing that, oh, I can negotiate every part of my contract.
Yeah.
Like those are things that nobody teaches you as a young musician because you've never been exposed to that, right? Your whole job is to make music, is to make art. There is no situation where you have to also keep that as a forefront in your mind. But there are a lot of communities and players and individuals who are at least trying to make that more accessible. So I feel like education, and not the big E education, more like, can we make this information and this these resources available to musicians, I think is an excellent step in that empathy, in being able to be like, hey, listen, it's a tough industry, like it's very dog eat dog, but here are here are all the tools that you could possibly use to your advantage to not get fucked over, and I feel like that is so empowering to a lot of young artists, not just musicians, but a lot of young artists, like creatives in general, to be like, hey, there are so many ways in which people could fuck you over, but if you're a little bit more vigilant, if you're more cognizant about your rights, if you know the places where you can let go of certain things in order to gain something later, these are all things that can help you be a little bit more empowered, so that you don't have to worry about being like, oh shit, like nobody wants to be a victim, in
Yeah.
this particular dynamic. Nobody wants to end up later being like, oh fuck, I'm in a really horrible position, but I should have known better. That's the worst feeling ever. So I really want to shout out people like Sandhya, like even like this guy called Aniket Rajgaria, who's doing really cool shit in the tech space, trying to make music tech more accessible, so that even if you don't necessarily want to go down the traditional route of, oh, sign a label deal, do your thing, you can even be more self-empowered to be like, oh, I'm going to put out my music myself, I'm going to distribute it myself, I'm going to use tech resources that the mainstream aren't necessarily using, to kind of go down a route that most people aren't, and make money off of it. So yeah, man, there are a lot of people doing really cool and exciting pro bono stuff, but it's not at scale, unfortunately. And the more we can make that more available and accessible is the only way in which I think artists are going to actually feel confident to be like, hey, you know what? I do feel comfortable knowing what I'm getting into.
Yeah, I get that. A quick side note: isn't Priyanka Khimani Veedas's lawyer?
Yeah. Priyanka Kimani is a lot. She's our lawyer for PDCAT. She's really big in the scene, and so there's a conference that happens every year called All About Music, and
Yeah.
it's one. There are a handful of conferences like that in the country that are dedicated towards the entertainment and live music space. And I think for the last 2 years, if I'm not wrong, Priyanka has done these workshops specifically for the target audience being young musicians in the conference, to be like, yo, these are all the things that you need to keep in mind before you enter a contract or a label deal, so that you, exactly what I said, so that you don't end up being felt like you're fucked over. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's such a cool thing to do, because you don't she's not getting paid to do that. She's not like, there's not a real monetary incentive to distribute this information, apart from the fact that this is something that people should know.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The reason I think a light bulb went off in my head is because I was listening to a Vedas podcast somewhere and he mentioned her. But yeah, I get that. So even the empathy question, right? I feel like it comes into play not exactly when somebody is looking for the resources to get started as much. I feel like it comes into play because at that time when a label comes in, it's a win-win situation, right? However, I see the need for empathy with a lot of artists around, and maybe not at a larger scale or only. I see it even at a very local scale. Is when it comes to parting ways with someone you have regularly worked with, that
Okay.
we lack the understanding that, oh, it's possible that you and I will not work together forever,
Yeah.
right? Like it's like you have to be married to me, and you don't realize that divorce is an option.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like empathy is very important in that part. And I get that the fine print is very, very important. Like the reason I know that Apple pays more than Spotify does is because before I started this podcast, or before I published it, I went through the terms and conditions of Apple YouTube and of Apple Music YouTube and Spotify. And I read all of it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I made notes of what is benefiting me, what is benefiting my audience, and what is benefiting the platform.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
And it was insane the way I realized how it's functioning. And yeah, I hope that education is the way to go. Shout out to people like Priyanka Kamani who are doing some great stuff. Uh and yeah, but I do, coming back to the empathy thing, I feel like we are, and as with any other profession or uh any other social relationship, uh, we tend to be more empathetic towards people that we are familiar with
Hmm.
and people that we are friends with,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not uh and when I say that, I mean, for example, with you, for example, uh through your collaboration, and from what I know and understand, is through the way you collaborated with artists, you have fostered some very important friendships, right? uh and also you have also chosen to work with friends,
Yeah.
right? How has that experience been? Where are you able to understand, okay, this is where the vision for what we're doing starts, and this is where we need to compartmentalize this? Has it been easy or is it tough? Because, sometimes you're listening to someone and the music needs some work and you don't know how to tell them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest. It's not easy at all. It hasn't been easy. And I think it's also because we have this. I mean, I could be wrong, but at least for me, like when I entered management, right, like the perception of being a manager was greatly influenced by what I saw on television, in movies. You have to act as a champion for your artists. You have
Yeah.
to act as their you're their representation. So you want to be the best version of them so that they don't have to deal with the bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like that meme. Have you seen that meme of like this dude uh, covering this child and like a bunch of spears on his back? You see that? It's this really weird meme, and so it almost feels like that sometimes, where you're like you have to be a shield in many ways. You have to protect them from a lot of things, but you also have to act in their best interest. And beyond anything else, you have to be honest. And I feel like that is really fucking tough to do because, at least in my experience, like I've always worked with artists that I've been a fan of, first and foremost. Like I know a lot of people end up becoming fans of the people that they work with over time.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been the opposite. I was like, I cannot commit to working with you unless I really, really believe in your music, right? And touch wood, luckily, that's always been the case in the artists that I've managed to work with. The problem then lies in negotiating that social relationship, right? Where on one hand you do have to be there, you have to sort of take a lot of bullshit on their behalf so that they can get the best experiences, so that they can get the best opportunities, and they can also understand that financially this is a viable option because all the routing, all the sort of administrative work is going through me as a manager as opposed to you, so that you can divide your time specifically towards what you're good at, which is making music, making art, right? The problem is that oftentimes people think that managers have a lot of control over the art. And I feel like a lot of different managers approach it very differently. They have their own styles. But for me, it was always that I don't want to interfere with your creative process. Like that is not my work. That's not something that I've been hired or assigned to do. I'm here to administer your work, your business, right? But at the same time, that it's a very difficult. Like these aren't two separate elements, right? They're not mutually exclusive. The business and the art and eventually kind of merges together in many cases. Where if you know that certain, like for example, if you're working on an album, right, there is a conversation to be had about, is this album going to work for certain demographics? Is the marketing going to fit with what we have in mind creatively? And I feel like that push and pull between creative and business is inevitable. And the best relationships happen when you come from a position of, hey, we see the end term, we're aligned on the same basic principles. Like we know that we have these goals that we want to achieve. And even though there might be clashes in how we want to reach there, we know that that's still in sight, right? So I think one, being dead ass honest is never a bad option. Like being brutally honest, in fact, works in your favor because oftentimes you have to also act as a support system, as an emotional support system. And artists are generally, from my experience, they're very, very insecure in a much more larger way. Like you're naturally going to be insecure because you're bearing almost your rawest part of yourself to a public that is inevitably going to criticize you and judge you basis this, right? So to have a manager on your side, in your corner, to be able to be like, I love where your head is, but maybe this isn't the right time for this, is a nice way of saying it. But then to also be like, yo, this is just not it. You can do better. go a long way in just being like, hey, you know what, like, fuck, if my manager thinks that way, then I'm sure at least a big section of other people are going to believe this way too, you know? So being brutally honest, having the same basic principles and end goal in sight, and also deciding to work together out of a position of mutual respect. Like you have to be able to be like, hey, I love your craft, but I also want you to know that you have trust in me and my ability to help you and assist you. You know, so I think it has to go both ways.
Yeah, I get that. And I feel like from what I've seen with music or with the live music scene is that a lot of people who tend to collaborate with each other are friends, right? So is it easy to work with your friends?
Um, I can't really speak much for artist to artist collaborations as much as I can for friend to friend collaborations. Because, like, for example, like when I work with, I was managing Ranj and Clifford, right? Duo from Bangalore, hip hop duo, R&B duo. They are also huge fans of other artists. And when you're slowly climbing up in the ranks and you get access to like bigger and bigger artists, it's like, fuck, I get to work with a Sid Himot. I get to work with, you know, like a Benny Dayal, you know, like they have that natural collaborative spirit, which I find is kind of, it's not rare. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's rare because most musicians have that collaborative spirit, but I feel like a lot of hip hop artists specifically often really only work with hip hop artists that are within their clique again, you know,
Yeah.
like within their own sort of party circle, within their own friend group, which is fine. There's nothing wrong in that. But there are other artists like Ranjan Clifford, for that matter, who are actively trying to be like, hey, we like your music, we like your craft, even though we may not hang out, you know, grab beers every weekend. We want to work with you because we feel like this could be something cool that we've never tried.
Yeah.
You know, like for example, they just released a track with Dhanji, yeah, which was an unexpected combination. They've done, you know, collaborations with Seedhe Moth, and again, like they're not DHH rappers, you know, they're not like that hardcore, like, you know, North Indian or even like, you know, Western Indian, like, you know, DHH classic sound. They're open to experimenting with R&B tracks, with soul tracks, with, you know, with fucking like gospel influences, and
Yeah.
like that's so, it's so rare to find those collaborations happen because both parties need to be equally committed to giving it a shot,
Yeah.
you know. Now on the other hand, when you're working with a friend, it can get really like, the benefit is that you can work without having to break any ice. You know, you're immediately just like, hey, we know
Yeah.
what we want, and you can really go into it. But then on the other hand, your creative differences are vocalized. You know, like people are gonna
Yeah.
tell you like, yo, you're not doing this right. Like that's not it. I want it this way. I want it that way. And it's natural to butt horns together. But at least you're never gonna feel like you've offended a friend. You know, sometimes when it's a more like strictly collaboration for collaboration's sake attempt, there's always that tiptoeing around like, oh, like I don't want to impede on your process, or I don't want to make you feel offended, but I also want you to think that I'm talented. Egos might clash sometimes, but it's never about, you're never going to be brutally honest as you will with a friend, you know? So, like, for example, I used to manage this DJ, this hip hop DJ and producer called Prithvi.psd. And
Yeah.
he will,
I know
yeah,
him.
and Prithvi loves working with his friends because he knows exactly how to facilitate their requirements. You know, as a producer, like for example, he works with this hip hop artist called Mohawk. Shout out Mohawk,
I
excellent
just
chamber.
saw a Mohawk. He submitted something to someone. I just heard it today, I think.
Dude, he's the best. He's the sweetest. And like Prithvi knows that hey, like Mohawk is gonna write this kind of way. Like him and Ray Mullah work together really well. Like he knows like, hey, I know what Ray might want in this bass sample. I know what, you know, like how to arrange it in a way that fits his like songwriting decision. And again, like I'm not a fucking producer. Like I have no idea what's going through their minds when they make this connection. But even sitting around them, like in a studio session, you can kind of tell that, oh, there's like this unsaid understanding that they have because they're friends. You know what I
And
mean?
some
And that
synergy that is more natural than forced.
exactly. And that same synergy is very different between just artist to artist, you know? And I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like that's the really fascinating element about making music to me as a non-musician, where I'm like, yo, like, how are you just immediately in the zone and you know exactly what the other person is thinking without having to like communicate it necessarily? You know, I've
Yeah.
always been super fascinated about that.
Yeah, but I also think it's a little easier when one compartmentalizes. Like in my case, for example, I'm not averse to working with my friends, but I tend to be a little cautious about it
Yeah, yeah,
because it's not that I don't believe in their talent. It's because I'm like, do I think you can compartmentalize it? Like, let's say that our association goes south, right?
right.
Is it going to affect my friendship with you? And is my friendship with you more important than the work?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
But coming back to this, wow, I still have so much I want to ask you. But so is talent valued or is it marketability, according to you, at this
Is
point?
talent valued or marketability? Interesting. I think talent can be marketable,
Mm,
right? But marketability is not dependent on talent.
yeah,
Like, for example, like there are a lot of artists that fucking suck, right? But they're so marketable. Like, and like to me, like the way I kind of reconcile with it is that like talent is abundant right now more than it's ever been in human history, right? Like because we have access to information, we have access to resources. Like dude, like for example, like I was in an Uber the other day, and the Uber driver was like telling me about his son who's a YouTuber now, and he just like this kid just literally makes like tech gadget review videos in his own capacity, in his own economic sense, in gadgets that he can afford. Dude, like he's hitting like 700,000 views, 800,000 views a video, and I'm like, again, like my point being, like you don't need like the obstacles towards reaching talent has been lower right now more than ever. So talent is abundant, right? The problem is when talent is abundant, you kind of can immediately pick out the people that are more talented than others.
yeah,
So like, and I feel like marketability is kind of easy. Like you can train someone to become marketable. You can do the right things, so to say, to get someone to cater to a market. Um, but real talent, I feel like it's like we've been discussing. Like it's rare to come by. It's hard to miss because it comes from a position of authenticity. Um, and yeah, man, like I feel like a lot of labels have been trying to like create, like industry plants are a thing. They are 100% a thing. Like there are decisions being made from corporations who are like, hey, if we put this group of people together and make them do these things and make them wear these clothes and record this kind of music, we will make money, right?
yeah,
And that is the easiest thing to do. Dude, people are even doing that with AI now. Like the wildest thing I read, it was like 2 months ago, I think in August or September. I think it's the Hello Group or one of these like creative, like they're basically talent management company for influencers, right? For like Instagram influencers and stuff. They made India's first AI band called
yeah. So
Trilok,
what's it
and
called?
it's called Trilok. Okay,
Mm,
it's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. It's bizarre because it's like one, it's not even like a cool concept. Like it's a very Hindu forward, like mythological. Like I've every other metal band is that. Like I can name 12 other metal bands from India who are that same concept, right? So it's not new, and it's like you're taking away jobs and opportunities from actual artists who could have benefited from this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's my point being like marketability has reached such an extent that you don't even need talent anymore. You know,
mm,
so it's like we've crossed that threshold of needing actual talented individuals to make money. Like you can literally input your requirements into an AI software, and they will make marketability like for you within seconds. And I feel like that is probably the most existential threat to entertainment that we've ever come across. That we really don't need like individuals in order for us to fulfill our entertainment needs. Like we can literally get that done via AI replacements. And I know that like that being said, there are a lot of like I feel like the AI debate has kind of been over analyzed, but I'm starting to realize that this has reached our doorsteps. Like it used to be so distant. It used to be so like, oh yeah, they'll figure it out. The global powers that be will kind of figure it out. but now it's reaching like our backyards, and I'm like, oh shit, like this is
Yeah.
legitimately concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I'm not a fan of AI in any creative process or any process for that matter. I have some places where I'm like, oh, maybe I would be okay with it, but otherwise, no. But I get that. But do you think that, okay, coming to uh this evolution that AI has brought about in the industry also, into my next question is, how do you think the it's a three-part question, but how do you think them? I'm clubbing them so that we can,
Yeah,
uh, be a little concise with it. But how is the music scene in India evolving? One, what is a good change that has come about, and what needs to change?
great questions. So from what I've seen, I feel like the music industry in India right now is it's objectively at its best it's ever been. Not just in terms of size and scale, but also in terms of the kind of case studies that we have to show examples of positivity.
Mm.
And by that I mean like I like to be more glass half full when it comes to my industry because it's way more exciting being excited for things than it is to be fucking pissy about shit.
Yeah.
So for example, like when I think one really cool moment um was when we started seeing your Diljits, your Hanuman Kains, King, uh, Jonita Gandhi, a lot of these, they were pretty mainstream artists in India for a while, but that overnight success in a global platform, I think that really lit a fire underneath us to be like, hey, not only are we reaching audiences that are beyond India, but we're also competing and collaborating with
Yeah.
a more global audience.
Yeah.
Like
Hanuman
when
Kind and ASAP Rocky.
yeah, and honestly, that was actually, that was like it was a little surreal, but that wasn't even the most mind blowing thing for me because I don't know if I saw that coming, but that specific collaboration, I was like, oh yeah, of course. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it
that's
makes sense. It fits.
what I thought was really cool was before I joined my company Pagalana, Peter Cat went on their US. They went on the North America tour, and they were when Beta was released their album. They went on tour with Krongbin, and I was like, that is a fucking legitimate collaboration. That's what I was like. Oh, I never thought
Yeah.
these two extreme, even though they're very similar now that I think about it, and now that it's happened. But like like I feel like those two distinct artists coming together and going on tour together, I thought was the coolest thing ever, right? And that kind of leads me into the second part of your question, which is what are good examples, like what is good in the
What's a
industry.
good change that has come about, and what needs to change?
I think the best change that has come about, and I've seen this happen so much in this year itself, is that we're giving more attention towards the idea of curation. And by curation, I mean curating collaborations smartly, but
Mindfully also.
mindfully also, yeah, and also curating events and festivals and experiences much more mindfully.
Mm.
Like, I think there are two reasons why we're so we're getting so many options and opportunities for live music right now this year more than ever. Like
Oh
Pitbull,
yeah.
Enrique, Linkin Park, John Mayer, fucking Tom Morello. There's so many artists coming down to India this year, and I feel like that's not a mistake. That's not a consequence of chance. That is because the players that we have decided that, and by the players I mean your Book My Shows and your District and these ticketing companies have realized that India is fucking huge. We don't have to worry about people having to be forced to make a choice anymore. Like for Lollapalooza, and I feel like again Lollapalooza is so recent if you
Yeah.
really think about
Yeah. For
it. Like
India.
it's only been like what 4 editions, 5 editions now. Lollapalooza to me, I thought was like a mind blowing thing because
Yeah.
it's a genre agnostic festival, so
Yeah.
that no matter what music you like, you can still go there and have a fun time, and you can feel like, oh, my money is being spent wisely, right?
Mm.
If you extrapolate that same concept into concerts across the country, that should be the case. Like there should be concerts dedicated for like only hard rock. Like Bandland is, I love the Bandland curation because, dude, like there's so many people I know who are like, yo, I only want to go. I don't have to worry about hip hop.
Muse is coming for that, no?
Music, like, dude, Rolling Loud is happening, and like I know only the hip hop motherfuckers are gonna go there, and like I think that's good. I feel like that is a net positive because that means that people are taking curation seriously. Like you made this, like I know there are so many disagreements about lineups, which is valid, and I encourage those disagreements because that means that you're putting curation to the test. You know, you're keeping them, you're holding them accountable for their curation. We as fans, as consumers mostly, should be we're well within our rights to expect the most out of these large corporations because we are paying them exorbitant amounts of money, right? And like I'm not even talking about like even paying like what, like $5,000 for a Lollapalooza ticket is too fucking expensive. We should not have to. And I know that you're getting a lot more from that amount. You're getting 20 artists, 25 plus artists. But I feel like the ticketing economy, and I'm a huge nerd about when it comes to ticketing finances. We are as consumers getting more fucked now than we ever have been, just in terms of how much value we're getting out of our tickets. And I feel like, so on one hand, curation is at an all-time high. Like we're getting people who actually know the music in charge of making the decisions of musicians that get to perform. But at the same time, the market has become so that people are reselling rampantly. They're trying to make money off ticketing rather than go to these experiences. That now paying for a ticket has been more expensive than it ever has been. So I feel like, maybe to your third point, in order for us to evolve, we got to really collectively decide that are we going to be sustainable in every aspect of the music and entertainment economy, from being empathetic towards labels and artists, from knowing that algorithms can't necessarily control our taste, to making discovery a real concern, and making sure that we can go to concerts without having to sell a fucking kidney. You know? So it's like, that's what I mean when we're at a existential kind of crisis, identity crisis right now, is that we're doing a lot of great things. Like we're doing a lot of really cool things. We're making our mark internationally, but we kind of don't know where it's going to go from here. It could go in a really negative way where we end up fucking our economy, or at least in a live entertainment space, and the market has to correct itself like 5 years down the line. Or we realize that, hey, now is a useful time for us to get our ducks in a row and implement frameworks and practices now that can help people 5 years down the line. You know, so like this is like the next 2 years are going to be super important in my opinion.
I get that. I remember when I turned 22, I cried. Mostly because I could not avail the under 21 discounted tickets for festivals anymore, and I was so upset. I was like, why am I paying full price for this? Like it was
fucking
insane. And yeah, I mean, I get that. And do you think, there's this thing about, with all of these artists coming down, right? Like even with Coldplay coming down, or with Green Day coming down, there was this thing going around where people said, "Oh, name 3 tracks."
Yeah.
Right.
Fuck that. I fucking hate that.
Yeah, that brings me to my question, which is, the art of simply just going for the music. Forget going to put it on your Instagram or to let people know you were there or to show your face or to not because you paid for it. Or you just bought it because your other friends were going. The art of just simply going for the music. Does it still exist?
Ooh, does it still exist? Yes, it 100% still exists. Like, and it will continue to exist because there are always going to be people who are going to listen to any act for the first time, no matter what. No matter what concert you go to, there will always be at least 1 or 2 people in the room that have never heard this artist or musician ever before, right? And I feel like we should be more accepting of people not knowing who the artists are, because that's literally how you end up discovering your favorite musicians. You know, like I hate the idea of, like, I feel like gatekeeping has its nuances. Like it's a lot more complicated than just your basic, like, oh, I'm not going to let you enjoy something because it's an elitism notion or whatever. But I do agree in the fact that we can't be fucking going up to people being like, oh, name 3 fucking Rage Against the Machine songs, name 3 Coldplay songs. Like, dude, I maybe only know 1 Shakira song. I only know Hips Don't Lie. Is that going to stop me from going to go see Shakira live in concert? Hell no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, dude, Pitbull. Okay, Pitbull just announced he's gonna come to India in December, right? I will 100% go there, even if I only know hotel room service,
Yeah.
because like I feel like we gotta stop being assholes to people. Like concerts aren't about they're not catered to just hardcore fans of the person who's performing.
The point is
They're
to
catered to
discover.
everyone,
Yeah.
and everyone should feel accepted, and everyone should feel like they're having a great time, even if they have no fucking idea who the artist is, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, like, and this kind of goes into the festival element a bit as well, like even the age disparity. Like I feel like a lot of festivals are trying to become more uh, accepting and more accommodating of people who are much younger, like kids and teenagers, and also people who are much older, like senior citizens, people above the age of 50, 50, 60. And I feel like that is also so important. Like I feel like we need to be able to create safe spaces in concert venues so that people of all ages can have a good time, because I feel like right now the youth are dominating most of concert life, which is fine and that's very normal and it's bound to continue to happen. But again, like we need, like we're gonna end up being in our 50s, and if we don't feel comfortable and safe and secure, like what happened to Travis Scott in
Europe, I think.
Florida. No, not his India show, but
No,
when
Europe.
people died.
I think Europe.
Yeah, Europe or
I
whatever.
don't
When
remember
people
where.
literally could not get water, when
Yeah.
they were getting like stampeded on, those are avoidable things. You know, those are
I
really easily avoidable
I
concerns.
can't stand a poorly managed event. I just can't.
Yeah, and I feel like dude, and that's a extreme case, right? But even from something as simple as there is this concert that happens in Bombay called it's similar to Bandland. I'm blanking on the name, but it's essentially garnered towards rock and metal acts, right? And I remember I went for one of those in 2022 when the F16s were playing, and you see a lot of older people in the audience who are genuine fans. Like they're not going to go around asking younger people to be like, oh, name three indiscreet tracks or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But if they are complaining about basic things like, hey, the sound isn't good, or like, hey, I had to wait in line to get a bottle of water for like 30-40 minutes, or like there was no place for me to sit down and catch my breath. Simple shit like that is when you start making music less accessible rather
Yeah.
than just concerts less accessible,
Or enjoyable also.
yeah, or enjoyable. And I feel like there are, I mean, not to say that nobody's taking this seriously. There are a lot of people taking this very seriously. Lollapalooza, for example, Book My Show, they've implemented a lot of policies for free water, refillable cups, designated like rest zones, things like that. But it's so few and far between, and like India is fucking gigantic, and safety should be the number one priority. Even in fact, arguably more than the music. Like you can afford to have a shitty fucking console. But if people are getting like, if they feel unsafe at a show, then that is, in my opinion, is a bigger concern than if the PAs weren't working or something like that.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, with regards to production, in fact, I'm going to be recording with a friend of mine who I worked with when I worked at Blue Frog,
Yeah,
who he does sound for some of the best festivals in the country, and he's pretty cool.
yeah,
So stay tuned for that episode.
yeah,
But coming to the water thing also, yeah, like even accessibility, it was so commodified because I remember Supersonic when it happened in Pune, they made waves because they were the first festival that I saw in my hood who
in your backyard, Dandiya
in my
night.
backyard. Yeah, even Supersonic also happened right here actually. Uh no, Supersonic happened in Mahalakshmi, which was
Okay,
at
yeah,
Kharai.
yeah,
Yeah. That's when NS7 also moved there eventually
right,
because they kept littering this one, and my township is very particular about not littering.
yeah,
But anyway, so they were the first ones who kept free water. And I
yeah.
remember that because they heavily marketed the fact that they have free water. And that's when I realized, I was like, why must I? First of all, even on a very moral and ethical level, I don't understand why one must pay for drinking water.
Yeah, in general, yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I understand that, and even with safety. I mean, I've had the luck of working with some really lovely production crews and people who take these things seriously. Like I remember, uh, I don't remember Weekender did it in the beginning, but I remember even Supersonic again. I'm a Supersonic fan, and as you could tell, but
Yeah,
I remember they had like an audience. I mean, audience and the ambulance in, that's just on
yeah,
standby, and they had like a little health section where there were doctors waiting in case you were dehydrated or in case something is happening. Because one,
yeah.
you're in the heat. Two, there's a lot of alcohol involved sometimes if you're, you need attention, or if you've gotten injured while walking around.
Dude, absolutely. One buddy of mine, Paramdeep Singh, he's an architect by profession, and he's responsible for a lot of stage design and festival design, in the sense that where they'd be placed for optimal acoustics, for where you put your PAs, where you put your FOH, etc. But I was chatting with him the other day, and one of the coolest things he was kind of nerding out about was that he also has to keep in mind crowd control when he has to design his festival plan. Like
Logistics,
when
yeah,
NH7,
emergency exits.
yeah, exactly. When NH7 shifted from Mahalakshmi to their recent ground, that was a big challenge because the terrain was not flat. It was on like different levels of incline, right?
But
So
you're
they
able to locate the Magapatta one versus the Kharadi one?
the recent one where MI and Daler Mehndi performed,
Oh, I think that was
it's a little
that's in the outskirts.
yeah.
I think, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
I don't
familiar with.
remember. I didn't go for that. Hmm.
So basically, that ground is such that it's literally there's giant flat area, another elevated flat area, and a third flat area.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a hill with three different layers, right? And that proved to be a challenge because you're entering from the top, but your biggest stage is at the bottom, right? So everyone is coming on a downhill. So will that risk people maybe falling into each other? Will it be comfortable for people to walk from stage to stage if they want to catch an act in the middle? How can you create, like you said, emergency exits? How can you put bathrooms in strategic locations? How can you make sure that you're not fucking up people's like accessibility, like food and water and things like that. Like I was like, dude, I never worked on a festival in that capacity, and I was like, wow, I would never have thought of these things. And I'm so glad that there are people hired whose job is to keep all of these situations in mind. I'm fascinated by how like festival production, especially in like crowd control, stage mapping, exit planning, etc., is made. Like that blows my mind.
Yeah, mine too. In fact, with the Eric Prydz concert that I mentioned with Supersonic, the first one, he came back and he was at the Dome on the 5th of October,
Yeah,
and I went for it. I
yeah,
broke. It was my I the last time I went for a concert and not a
not like
music festival,
yeah,
or like a standalone concert. I mean, I did go for Ed Sheeran, but an electronic concert was 2018, which was also the last time I was in Bombay. And I
yeah.
went back to Bombay for this. And the thing is with Fritz's production, he's known for a very specific production style. And India at that time did not have the wherewithal. It's not that we don't have the talent
Yeah,
for it, we did not have the infrastructure for it. So if let's say we were at like say 10% of his potential, because he creates these visuals that you feel like someone's putting their hand out and is coming at you.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, correct.
Beautiful. And he works very well with lasers and all of that. And at that time, if we were there, I wanted to see how it would be different this time, right? Because it was the dome. So uh and this time I think we're probably at a 35%, which is it's good progress, having like, it's been 7 years since he last came, or 8 years since he last came. But there's still a lot more. And I was told that they basically built a proxy stage, which is similar to what he does originally, so that countries which don't have the infrastructure to introduce that to the audiences, they can still do it. So
Wow.
they specially design this. And I was talking to somebody who works for district, and he said, there is not a single stage in India that can hold this.
I can accommodate it. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's not that we don't have the talent,
yeah,
right? But it's that, do we have the infrastructure? So I remember you had said that earlier also about venues. So I get that. I think There is so much that goes into it, and I don't think a lot of people even realize it. So I'm really glad we're doing this podcast because
Absolutely, yeah.
it would be because a lot of people used to, I remember when I worked with Blue Frog and at other venues where I was shooting or I was working, I remember people say, "Oh, you're getting paid to party." I'm like,
Yeah,
paid
I've gotten that.
I was like, you have no idea. I've had 5 panic attacks already. Like, I'm not. I can't. I have tamed 25 egos in the past 10
I
minutes.
swear.
Right. So it's so interesting because when you're on the other side of the bar, when you're on the other side of the stage, you know what has gone down. You know that the guitarist string has broken, but
Yeah, yeah,
nobody can tell. Right?
yeah,
You know that the drummer is hungover from the night before and has lost the beat. So it's a
yeah.
very interesting dynamic because it I think it opens up a space for respecting what goes behind putting on a show, however small or big.
Yeah. And like, dude, like I know like show business is such a overused term, but it is like it's a business of putting on a good show at the end of
It's
the day.
beautiful. I love show business.
Yeah, and like I feel like it's really tough to put on a good show sometimes. There's so many things that need to be perfect or need to go at least go the right way in order for you to pull off a good show. And now show business isn't just a show. It's also like what you're doing before the show, what you're doing after the show, what you're doing on your phones, on your Instagrams, on your Twitters, etc. And so like I think it's scary how much the business of entertainment and music has changed in a very short amount of time. But it's also so fucking exciting because I remember I think I was talking to one of my friends who's a little younger than me, and he wants to enter. He's working in software and he wants to enter the entertainment industry.
Mhm.
And I realized like I benefited greatly from joining. I had like first movers advantage in the sense that it was still a little smaller when I joined. It was
Yeah.
still a little bit more contained and a little bit more tinier. And so, luckily, I'm blessed and privileged to have known the right people to help me out. But I can't imagine how tough it is now for younger people to enter the industry because
It was a lot more
the
reclusive earlier, also, I think.
yeah, way more reclusive, and a lot more like I think now there's so many barriers that prevent and I think it has its pros and its cons. Like we are now more compartmentalized in the sense that we know exactly what role someone has to fulfill. Like when I was working as a manager, a fucking one manager did everything, social media, tour management, everything for an artist. Luckily now that's shifted. That we can we've afforded different responsibilities to different people, which is great. But that also means that you have to be really fucking good at your job if you want that job now. Like I feel like a lot of young people who are trying to intern, who are trying to um, do their first entry level position in the music industry, they are put to a lot more scrutiny, which I feel like is good in a lot of ways. Like, yes, you need to pick up your shit because now everyone is working thrice as hard than they were 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we expect the same out of you now. Um, but to see that evolution take place in front of my eyes is has been a bit surreal. I won't lie. Like I never thought it would reach this stage this quickly. I knew it would happen, but it's accelerated faster than I ever thought it would.
Yeah, speaking of not realizing something reaching this stage this quickly, I realize how old I am when you call Tejas Menon one of the old ones. And I'm like, am I old? Like,
Yeah,
what's happening? But coming back, is okay. Now this is about short form. Okay, so I'm going to club two questions again. Do you think short form is creating a lack of patience when it comes to the joy of discovering new music? And also, is it taking away from songs that you like when they're repeatedly being played on your phone? Like, for example, there's this song called Blue Monday, which was put up by, and there was a remix of it by Above and Beyond, and I love Above and Beyond. And then the reel became very famous, the
yeah.
audio. So do you think it takes away from that? Do you think it's taking away from the joy of finding new music? Because then you hear it, it's actually nice, but then when you hear it multiple times, it's
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think it takes away from the joy of discovering music because like I mean, like even before there were reels or any short form content, like the idea of a song being overplayed still existed. You know, like
Yeah.
either it'd be played at like a fucking mall, at a
Oh, Shape of
store,
You.
on the radio, like
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, like even though the medium was different, overplaying a song has always been a thing. But when it comes to short form being used for discovery, I won't lie. Like I've discovered a lot of really cool songs because they've been on reels. You
Yeah.
know, like a lot of like younger musicians and bands get hella creative now. Like the way they like for example, like there was this band. It's this group called What More.
Mm.
They're a hip hop. They're like the new Brockhampton. Okay, and they're really fun. Like they've basically used they made these fucking bizarre reels in order to promote some of their songs, and I'm just like, yo, this is so creative. It's left a lasting impact on me in like 4 seconds. Enough for me to at least go back and be like, oh shit, I'm gonna go check out the music, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, man. I really like when people get creative with their circumstances. And I feel like there's a lot of negative things about short form content. And there are a lot of, even from my POV, like from a managerial POV, from a booking agent POV, you kind of want artists to utilize it in the best way possible,
Yeah.
but it's really up to the artist to find a creative way to do that, you know. And I feel like the artists that do, they do it really well, and I'm impressed with how they do it. So yeah, I feel like I think there could be something cool about using short form content to discover new music if done in a way that resonates with people. I guess, you know.
Yeah. I get that. Like one artist that stood out for me was this artist called Brooke Alex. Um,
Okay.
and she, I think it's Brooke Alex or Alex Brooks. I think it's Brooke Alex. But she basically has this song where it starts. I mean, it goes on and it says, there's a verse that says, "If you want to know how my life is going, there's someone close to you, and she already knows it." And then the chorus is, "All my ex's moms listen to my songs." Right. And then the video is her ex's moms coming one after the other.
Banging, like jamming to their songs. I love
Yeah,
that.
like it's insane. I love how that has worked. Uh, and yeah, I get that. I discovered like Axomaniac not through reels, but I came to one of his reels and then I found his page and whatnot.
Yeah.
I understand that. I think it's a very it has a lot of trial and error that's happening there. Like there are some songs that are so old that people are discovering now again and listening to it, like Vienna by Billy Joel, for example.
Yeah, dude, like Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield, like it's
Yeah.
made a huge comeback now. It's one of my favorite songs, and like I keep seeing reels of people like just like these really bulky big dudes just singing their hearts out at fucking Natasha Bedingfield. I'm like, yes, I want to see more classic songs being brought back
Yeah.
through this type of shit, you know?
Yeah. I do this thing and I think it also opens up any genre rigidity that one has. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
like looping back to the genre agnosticism conversation. So, for example, I regularly jam with my 15-year-old brother. He's 15 now, and my cousin, and he's so when we're jamming, he's sitting in Bangalore and I'm in Pune, and we sit in, we'll cue music. So I'm
Yeah,
introducing him. So, for example, his idea of gangster rap is like my idea is NWA, and
yeah.
his idea of gangster rap is Travis Scott.
That's wild.
So
That
I have
that
to sit
blows
and
my
listen to Travis Scott for like one song, and then eventually I started putting up a lot of Indian hip hop and
sure.
Indian
Yeah,
rap. And he was like, and because it was not in English, he was like, "Oh, please no
yeah,
Hindi
yeah.
or no whatever language." And I was like, "No." I was like, "You will now." I have elder sister privileges, so I was like, "You are not going to be closed off to it." And he's not open to listening to anything that is not what he already listens to.
That's so crazy. Like I remember when I was in high school, like it was the opposite. It was like I only consume English language Western music.
Yeah.
That even one or two Indian language based artists were like, oh fuck, like damn, I've never heard anyone rap in Hindi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was the other way around. That's so I can't believe like it's now gone back to like the other way. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting that now kids in high school are like, no, I don't want to listen to like Hindi hip hop or anything.
No, I mean, I do blame it a lot on the school he goes to and the kind of
Right,
environment
right,
and the
right.
kind of things he listens to. Like the other day, he tried to tell me that Travis Scott is better than Eminem, and I was like, boy, please
But
try.
like it's so funny. Like I used to think that people much older than me, their opinions and their like insistence on certain musical opinions were so they were so old. I was like, no fucking, like, you're just saying that because you're like old and you're like from a
Yeah,
different time. But now we're in that different time, and then our music opinions, which I objectively believe are absolutely right. But now to now experience younger people, kind of think about it that way. I'm like, fuck, am I an old head now? Like, am I considered an old head by younger people now?
I see. I'm all right with that. Quite introspecting that part. But then he told me that he thinks Eminem mumble raps, and I'm like, what do you think Travis Scott does? I've not heard a single.
Isn't it so funny how it kind of puts shit into perspective? Something similar happened to me. One of my younger cousins was talking about I think he was talking about one of these like Travis Scott types only. It was like Ski Mask the Slump God, or who was it? It was like Don Toliver, one of these guys, right? And he was like, dude, you have no idea. Like, these are the real hip hop artists right now. They're actually like living what they talk about. I'm like, yeah, but what are they talking about? Like, if you really think about it, like back,
Did
like
they
for
get
example,
shot? Is my question.
do they get shot? Are they dealing drugs? Maybe they are, but like in the same way
If
that
they
it
have to
was.
survive like a very difficult family, maybe they do.
Yeah, like dude, I remember when 50 Cent first came into the scene. I
Yeah.
was scared. Like I was like listening to it was like fuck. Like I gotta be secretive about this, because that was real gangster shit, and it was it
Yeah.
was considered taboo, bro. Nobody's gonna like. I've heard my cousin listen to literally like songs about like people hitting vapes, people like fucking like weird child shit, and I'm like,
Oh, hitting waves, how badass. Sorry, I'm
how
just
badass, right? I don't know, like it became like a weird moment where I was like, clearly shit is changing. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, but with my brother, something I'm really proud of is he's finally opening up to new genres because he randomly came up to me and he was like, I'm listening to Linkin Park and I got like tears in my eyes. I was like,
Wow.
yes. And then I
Oh
gave him a
yeah.
list of songs to listen to.
Initiation. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. And I think it happens in its own sweet time. And because I told him, don't be closed up to genres. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
even when it comes to the genre agnosticism thing, right?
And I feel like that same thing can be applied to people looking at really, really young artists now as well. Like for example, there's this artist called Break Ants. I don't know if he's like must be like 19, 18, 19 years old. And it's a very hyper pop, kind of like almost glitchy hip hop meets like it's a weird blend of hyper pop and new age hip hop. And I remember initially when I heard it, I was like, this fucking sucks. Like I'm never gonna enjoy this. Like this is some like hyper underground white boy music,
Yeah.
that I'm never gonna come around to liking. But then I realized that it was becoming like there's a guy called Two Hollis. Some of these really young, like these younger artists, like I feel like once you break the notion of the context and you only listen to it for what it is, even though that may not necessarily be how it should be listened to. But like I don't know the qualms or the woes of what it means to be a 19-year-old in rural Texas right
Yeah.
now. But I can listen to the music and get a sense of it,
Depends on
so I
whether
feel like
they're black or white to get context.
yeah, yeah, also true. And so I just realized like, oh, there
Or
is a whole
Indian.
world, or
Sorry.
Indian, yeah, or fucking
Or
brown,
Desi.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, like I gotta not be so rigid. And it's an ongoing practice, like we all have our own biases that are so valid. But I guess I take active music listening very seriously. So if I want to discover new music, I want to make sure that I'm getting the best possible presentation of it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be clouded necessarily by like either trends, either like, like just because something's popular doesn't mean that it's good or bad,
Yeah.
you know? And I feel like we need to be accepting of both. Like a lot of people are contrarian for the sake of it. like just because something's just really, really big right now, they're gonna naturally try to dislike it, actively try to dislike it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the best solution either. There is something to be said about why it's popular in the first place. So I feel like it's a weird push and pull between like being accepting of new sounds, but also being like, yo, like respect what the real heads are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this experience recently. So I love karaoke.
Hell
And this one person, I just performed a song and I came out, and this one person tells me, "Hey, Sanmitra, I want to karaoke with you." So I was like, "Sure, what do you want to sing?" And they go like, "Something old school like Green Day."
yeah. Oh
And I looked
no.
at this person and I was like,
Oh
"Green Day is
no.
not old school. Green Day is cool."
Yeah.
Like, what do you
Yeah,
mean?
dude, I was at the Green Day show at Lollapalooza, and
Hmm.
they were like, I was so happy to see a bunch of kids. Like there were a lot of like 13, 14-year olds. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
But then like I don't know, this comes back to the idea of like, dude, they're calling everyone unk. Like they're all like, oh, you're too old to be. I'm like,
Yeah,
bro,
my
fuck you.
15-year-old cousin calls me Unk.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, they call me chopped. Apparently that's the thing that we are now. We're chopped. And I'm like, I don't know, it was such a it was like, dude, maybe I'm actually old now.
Yeah, it was insane. And I asked this person, I was like, "What year were you born in?" And they said 2002. And I said, "Oh, that explains it." So now, after every time I meet anybody born post 2000, the first question is, "Do you know who Green Day is?" Right?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, coming back to the genre rigidity thing, that I want to get into earworms, which was our original idea that I wanted us to base this on, and I do want to touch upon it, is that it's something I have learned or discovered. I don't know what, but I've realized that with every media, right, whether it is music, a TV show, a movie, like a genre of it, right, or if a book, right, or even with the artist or art, paintings, if you say you don't like it, like for example, if someone says, "I don't like metal," right, I believe that it's because you have not found or come across that one which you resonate with, you understand, and you relate to, or you see, sense something about yourself in without any external influence telling you that you should listen to it or like it,
Yeah.
right? Like for me, with electronica, the new song, the Manitou song, was that, or with like for me with classic rock, it was "Be Yourself" or "Slave," and
Yeah.
or with like there were so many of these, like it's like the shoe, right? Like you need to find the right shoe that fits. So which is why
Correct.
when I say genre agnostic, it's because I don't want to be closed off to it, and I thankfully I've heard quite a bit, uh or I actively listen to quite a bit, and there's so much more to listen to, and I'm so excited about it, to discover it, because like for example, when you said the industrial techno thing, right, I have industrial techno that I don't like, but I have industrial techno that I like.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally feel you.
Right. So I feel like with every person, it's when they say, "Oh, I don't like this," or "This is not my vibe." Because there was this one meme that was going around for years, which said that the last time that the music world knew peace was when Numb on Co came out with Linkin Park and Jay-Z.
Hell yeah.
Right. It was,
The
it
hip
was,
hop kids and the new metal kids came together. Yeah.
yeah. And the alt rock and whatnot. And it was so interesting because I'm like, it's because you haven't found that right one in that genre. That's the only reason you think you don't like it.
I
I may
would.
not be able to direct you to the right one. It will come to you when
Yeah.
it has to. Because you may not like it at one point, and then suddenly you're like, "Oh wow, this is pretty cool," or "This is pretty
For
fun."
sure. I also kind of think it also depends on when, where, and how you've listened to that
Yeah.
particular song. Like when we generally say you like that XYZ music, I think I could be wrong, but I think it generally means that on your on like a day when you've plugged in your headphones and you're listening to music, what would you generally be inclined towards putting, right? Generally speaking. But I feel like, again, like, what if I'm having a bad day? What if I'm on my way to a pregame? What if I'm, fucking sad as shit? What if I'm happy as shit? Like, there are so many different situations, circumstances that different tones apply to. And I don't even mean different songs or genres. Like, the tonal element of a fucking, a sad Coldplay song might make someone really happy.
Yeah.
For example, like the tonal, like, anger of a fucking Metallica track might make someone chill as fuck, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel like it matters, of course, how you listen to it. Like, I know there are a lot of medium purists. Like, they're like, oh, I need if I'm listening to my favorite music, I need to listen to it in the best audio method possible, which I totally understand. But for the general consumer, like, even the ability for a song to be able to hit in the way it's intended to, in like a car, or like in like a Bluetooth speaker, like, those are so important towards your first experience with that particular genre, that sound or that tone.
A
And like,
subwoofer can change a lot.
100%. And I feel like I think I agree with you. Like, it's not just about being open to different genres anymore. I feel like we're post genre in that sense, in the sense that there are so many artists. I think collaboration has reached a point where it's like you will see the most previously thought of as unheard collaborations happening right now.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot the name of the band, but there's this like all black punk rock who have elements of hip hop involved. Because like I grew up as a big pop punk kid. Like, I used to listen to a lot of Fall Out Boy, a lot of
Yeah.
fucking like My Chemical Romance, things like that. And like I remember thinking that like that is not like like socially, that is not a very brown person thing. It's very clearly a sad white dude fucking crying.
Yeah.
But then I researched a little bit, and like the black community, the African American community, has a huge soft spot for pop punk.
Yeah.
Because like, like, for some reason there could be a story behind it, there could be a reason why they're inclined towards it. For whatever reason, maybe it popped off in the hood at one house party, and like that is why people end up gravitating towards certain tracks. And we shouldn't be so we shouldn't be so restrictive in how we associate people to certain sounds. At the same time, we shouldn't be restrictive in how we associate ourselves to certain sounds.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like, again, like, that comes back to everything we spoke about. Like house parties you should be able, like, passing the aux shouldn't just be hip hop. Passing the aux could be, like, I saw this. I was listening to this podcast recently where people were listing down the best songs you can play at a party, no matter the genre, no matter the party. Like, even if it's like a fucking, like a baby shower, or it's a pre-game, it's a college reunion, it's a wake. What are some songs that you can play no matter what, and people will have a great time regardless. And the kind of songs that came out as a result were very unexpected. Like LCD Sound System, for example. LCD
Oh,
Sound,
Dance Yourself Clean. What a
that's
song.
such a great uplifting
Yeah.
positive song, right? Or like, like, Clearwater Revival. I'm forgetting the name of the song, but like really old classic rock songs.
Yeah.
Like, some songs, just no matter the situation, are great.
Yeah.
And everyone has a different spectrum in which that those songs fit. But there is a way to generally be like, hey, there are some songs that everyone can really enjoy. And I feel like those are exercises that we can do that are the first step towards being like genre agnostic, so to say.
Yeah. I get
Maybe we pass the box and it's a folk Mongolian throat singing track that's just getting the crowd fucking
Yeah.
lit. But shit like that, wild shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have that, like, with my playlist, for example. I'll tell you some playlists I have, right? And maybe like one is I have this one that's called Play This at My Funeral. It's a public playlist,
Hell yeah.
and I was like on shuffle. So you have no idea what's coming. You have Doris Day, K, Sarah, and you have I think you have some Black Sabbath there, then you have some Eminem,
Yeah.
and you'll have God knows what.
Hell yeah.
Or then I'll have one that's called Sad Girl Hours, which
Yeah.
is just 1 hour long, exactly 1 hour long, and it is
Yeah.
songs that are guaranteed to make me sad, so that I can have
Yeah.
like my good ugly cry, get done with it, and move on. Because in this economy, I can't stay too sad for too long. But that
Dude,
or
I
like
think I have a playlist exactly called Sad Girls Ours as well. Yeah. I'm trying to see if I can find it. But yeah.
Yeah, and then I have one that's called Charge Up, right? So these are songs that I
Nice.
would put on. Like I have one that says songs that remind me of people. Then I did one where I asked my friends, what are songs that remind you of me? Because sometimes it's good to see how the world sees you,
Uh,
right? Or
Dude, even like I think more people need to like playlists. More people need to make playlists. I feel like curation also extends to personal song curation, and I feel it's such a great exercise in knowing. Like it's again, it's a step towards being more open minded towards music in the sense that you realize that music isn't just restricted to um, genres. It's restricted to situations, moods. It could be arbitrary as just a fucking, I saw a tree and it reminded me of you. So here are 12 songs that remind me of that tree. Shit like I love the idea of playlist creation because it's how people interact with music on a very, very fundamental level.
yeah,
Like, put aside all your social expectations, put aside all your in group, out group politics. Making a playlist is for yourself, at least, or even for a significant other, for a friend, for whoever. You make playlists. Even it's like it goes back to mixtape culture. You know
yeah,
what it's like this reminds me of something, and hence I want to curate it. And I feel like that is so like that's such an important exercise, just generally for people.
yeah. I love making playlists for my friends, or even like I did this one thing on my story where I said recommend a feel good song for a stranger, and then I
Yeah,
put it into a playlist saying feel good thanks to strangers. Or I
yeah,
had one that I call pantry, which is my current, whatever I've discovered right now, it's in my pantry. So it's fresh. It will get sorted out later. Or I
yeah.
have one that's called Valin to Adderall. And
Hell yeah.
it's basically about 10,000 songs sorted by energy.
Wow. Fuck yeah. That's cool.
And
Send me that
all
shit.
yeah, like there's one which is just called Energy, and the title of all the tracks is Energy.
Nice.
So it's insane. Like I love making playlists, and it's like I have one that's called the songs that are guaranteed to make me dance. They call my
Yeah.
booty shakers.
I
So
love that.
it's a very fun vibe. I really like it, and but then there are songs that get stuck in your head. So coming to earworms, I was doing some research on what earworms are, and apparently it's the technical term is involuntary musical imagery,
Okay.
right?
Involuntary musical imagery. Got you.
Right now, what I would define as a earworm is either a song that I'm trying to remember. Like there's a Duran Duran song that reminds me of a Hindi song that I cannot place till now. I'm
Okay.
trying to figure it out. Or it's a song that is just stuck in my head. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and I
Yeah.
have a song playing in my head at any given point. I have this awful habit with my friends where they, say something and I'll randomly break. I'll just say the lyrics of the song, the title, I'll send them the song, like,
Yeah.
or something like that. So, tell me about what you would define as a earworm and what is the longest earworm you've had?
Ooh. That's a good question. What I think an earworm to me at least is a song that's been stuck in my head for a really long time. But I really like the concept of trying to figure out what a song is. Like I know there's so many like innumerable instances where you're like, dude, what's that song that goes like, and then you're like, na 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 na. You keep na 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 until you find it. And is that an earworm, or should that have a different term for it? Is a fascinating question. But if you think about an earworm as something that is stuck in your head, what is a recent song that has been stuck in my head for a really long time? I'm not gonna lie, it's probably it's that one. It's actually a Yo-Yo Honey Sim song. Um, "Ta-na-na-na-na-na, ta-na-na-na-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta." Why am I thinking about that right now? But that's something that's stuck in my head right now.
Right.
Brown Rung, Brown Rung.
Yeah.
That's an earworm. But the longest lasting earworm I've probably had is that's a great question. Fuck.
I put that there
Uh,
because I have one that I'm dying to share.
Tell me, like a long lasting one. Like how
So
long has it lasted?
I'll tell you. So I don't know if you remember or if you ever went to Beachwood Bistro in Pune when it
Yeah,
was
I went with you, dude.
you went with me?
I think so. With you, V Radha. I think so. I've been there though.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah. But did you go to the big one or the small one?
I went to the one that had like an outdoor area as
Yeah,
well.
that's the big one. Okay, so that I
Yeah.
had started working there for a short period, and there was this one song. I will send you. I'm making a list of songs to send you,
Sure, sure.
and now I hear this song, okay, and I'm going through a very weird time in my life where I'm actually very detached and dissociated from my environment. But this
Yeah.
song has caught my attention, and it's a very particular house track.
Okay.
And there's the breakdown. Usually they call it a drop, but it's actually technically a drop when it's big room. But with
Yeah.
electronica, it's called the breakdown. Just
Okay.
PSA, but to people listening. But the breakdown there suddenly catches my attention, and I'm like, I need to know what song this is. And by the time I have opened my phone, turned on Shazam, the song would transition,
Uh,
right? And then I went up to the owner of the
like,
place.
can you just go back, rewind a little bit?
No, I asked him what set it was, and somehow
Yeah.
every time the song would play, he'd be busy with something, so he wouldn't be bothered. He's like, "Oh,
Sure.
it's some set I'm playing on YouTube and SoundCloud."
Yeah.
I sat and I heard every single house, deep house,
I
chill
love
house,
it.
tech house set on SoundCloud at that time. When I'm saying every single one, where I'm like fast forwarding,
Wow.
like, is the song here? Is the song here? I didn't find it. And this happened in the beginning. So that beat would open in January of 2017. And then I was sitting at the small beach road, which is the original beach road, on New Year's Eve 2017,
Yeah.
where I sat with myself. I was going for a shoot. I usually used to work New Year's Eve. So before that, I had like some pasta and I had a drink with me. And back when I used to drink. And while I'm sitting there, suddenly the song plays again
And you're
after
like, shit.
after a year, and it was like a full circle moment.
Nice.
And I finally got the song and I was so
So
relieved.
what was the song?
It's called Pow Pow by someone like RG.
Okay.
I will send it to you. You will know why. There is a particular point in that song that makes you go like, what is this song?
Yeah, yeah, I love
Right?
that.
It
Hell
was
yeah.
it was insane. It was insane. Like
Yeah, I've noticed for earworms, it's usually like a melody or like, like a particular part of a track that has callback value that you're like, oh, like, I need to remember. It's never like, I, I don't know if, this is still, I don't know if we're still thinking of this as an earworm, because I feel like these are two different things. Like an earworm is something that you can't get out of your head. But then this is something that you want back in your head. You can't
or you want
remember
to
what it
ID.
is. You want an idea, yeah, yeah. There should be another word for that. I really like that though. But that should be a different category of phenomenon.
Do you have a longest earworm that you can think of? Mine was a year. Like it was such a problem. Like
Ooh.
I get very annoyed by it.
Oh, I have one. I have one. Oh, so random though. It was we were in when I was at Third Culture. We were all in the office together, and one of my colleagues, Desiree, Sugar Honey, she's a DJ.
Yeah, I
Um,
met her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dude, so we used to work together at Third Culture, and she used to have her desk right opposite mine. And she played this like one lyric of a Taiga song, okay?
Hmm.
And it's like the most popular, but I've never heard of that song. It
When
was
you say tiger, is it tiger or tiger?
Taiga, like Tyga, like he's
There's
a
a
tiger.
TIGA also, by the way.
Oh, okay. No, not him. I'm talking about like the hip hop dude.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Kylie's
he has
ex,
this
sorry.
Kylie's ex. And he has a song called Taste, which is like his most famous one. It's like "Da-na-na." Dude, I couldn't for the life of me figure out what that song was for a good like 6 7 months. It wasn't a year, but it was like. And then I remember when we were in the office, we all found out. Like I think it was her, or one of us. Like it was a quiet ass day, and then she just like screamed up. She's like, "Dude, it's Taste by Tiger," and we're all like, "Oh shit, that's what it is." So I feel like that's a whole different category of like that's not an earworm though, right? That's like a I can't figure out what it is,
Yeah, I
but
think
now that I've found it,
yeah, it's either wanting the ID or wanting to get rid of the ID from your head. It's
yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah,
two. That's
yeah,
still a earworm,
exactly.
right? Like it's yeah, there's a Duran Duran song that is I'm so certain it is some Hindi music song, and I feel like it's one song, and I think it's a song from Dil Dhadakne Do.
Okay,
The tune, and then I want to once I figure it out, I want to be able to see who copied whom.
dude, but this is like my favorite like activity. I love like trying to figure out what someone meant. Innumerable times where you're like you're with people, you're with friends, and like someone's like, dude, what's that song? And they try to hum it, or they try to like mimic the song, and everyone collectively is like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And I'm surprised like there's not an app yet that does that. You know what I mean? Like there should be an app where you can literally hum or la la la.
Of course you can. SoundHound used to be able to do that, and even with Google actually.
No way.
The Google mic has gotten very good.
That's insane. So I could literally just like hum,
Yeah, try.
like mumble the lyrics.
Mumble the song. Okay, try a song that you know.
Okay. Let's see. What song should I? Let's do. Let's
Real
see
Slim
what.
Shady.
Okay. Good one. Good one. Let me go to Google. Okay, wait. Enable diction. Okay.
If this works, they should pay us for plugging this for them. Anyway.
Okay. Fuck. Wait. 1 sec. 1 sec. 1 sec. 1 sec. Why is it not working? It's asked me to download Google.
What phone?
Wait. I have an iPhone on Safari.
Oh no! It's the Google app where you have the mic search thing. Okay, let me do it. My phone is on. You can hum the song. I'll tell you when to go. Okay. Wait, hold on. Search for a song. Now hum.
Ta 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 ta. That's it.
It's saying almost there. Do more. You have to do more.
What? It needs more?
Yeah, it needs more.
Okay, I'm ready.
Or maybe just hum lyrics. Try it. Okay, let's try the same thing. Okay, go.
Ta 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 ta.
You have to keep going. It's saying almost there.
No.
Okay, let's try another song. What's a famous song? You want to just try Happy Birthday?
That's too easy. It's got to be something that's like a little niche.
Or it could be or you want to try Big Dog, Hanuman kind?
Ooh, but how does that fuck, how does it go? I'm not blanking.
I forgot how it starts. Just start with I'm a big stepper.
Dude, so that's also been one of the biggest earworms of this fucking decade. Or not this decade, this year. When I've just been singing Big Dogs like to myself. Big stepper.
You know, I have a friend, if I even said anything saying, oh, I'm going to sleep, he'll say she's a big sleeper. Unknown methods. I did a search of our chats, and we speak on Instagram on 2 of my accounts. We have WhatsApp.
Yeah.
In one account, I have 64 mentions of him saying underground methods in a span of like some
yeah, it was a thing. Even I got super annoyed when people would like that's one of those songs where it got overplayed to a point where like we were like, okay, dude, we get it. You step, it's big, we get it.
Okay, let's try Big Dogs. Search for a song. Okay, you have to do it till I tell you to stop. Now go.
Wait. How does it? Okay, yeah, got it.
Wait, I'll tell you to start again. Hold on. Okay, now.
Yeah. Ta-na-na-na. I can't believe you're recording this.
I don't know, it's not happening.
It's okay. I trust you. I take your word for it.
No, it happened with one song where somebody sang it and that was not the original song.
Yeah.
And I found the song. But it happened.
This is news to me. I've been in so many instances where me or someone I'm with has forgotten a song, and I remember we tried Shazamming it, and Shazam couldn't figure it out.
No, Shazam.
And I had no idea.
SoundHound is quite good though.
That's insane. Like that to me is a great app. Like that's a useful invention.
Yeah, I love Shazam. It's one of my favorite apps. What's your current earworm?
What's my current
earworm?
Oh, dude, I have a couple. There is this. It's an earworm, but it's also a great recommendation I'd like to give. There's this band called Geese. Okay, they are a New York post punk alternative band, and they're like the lead singer sounds like Julian Casablancas from The Strokes. They're they're like breaking the norms of what a traditional rock band could be, and I feel like our generation or even Gen Z hasn't had a rock band that we're like proud of, and I feel like Geese is fitting that void really well. They have this song called one sec. It's called Taxes. Okay, it's called Taxes by Geese. The whole album is spectacular. It's produced by Kenny Beats, and it's like it's so weird because they move from like traditional rock, sensibilities to then like weird instrumentation in the middle, a horn section randomly thrown in, and it's so fun. And it's the first time in a long time that I'm excited about the rock genre again. You know what I mean? Like we had this lull for a while where not much was coming out, and but I feel like these kids, like they're also by the way, they're only like 20, 21 years old, based out of Brooklyn, really excellent band. Um, they've become a phenomenon. And their song Taxes has been a huge earworm.
Nice, nice. I've had some very funny earworms that just came into my head. I remember I was writing an exam, and I think it was one of my boards or something. And I think Nicki Minaj's Anaconda had come out at that time.
Hell yeah.
And
My,
I'm
that
writing my
kind of
physics
sounds.
paper, and I got nothing about physics is coming into my head. And I'm like, my anaconda don't. And I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Have you ever experienced this? Like this happens with me and my mom all the time, where like one of us will have a song stuck in the head, right? And
And
you
you
will
say,
just you'll involuntarily maybe hum it or something, or like
it
sing a
comes,
verse,
yes.
and then the other person will sing it. I'm like, how the fuck did you know that I have this stuck in my head?
Yeah.
You know, I love that. It's like a collective earworm situation.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's a fun one. Uh, I've also had people like, well, they keep humming it and then eventually it's stuck in my head again. And I don't, if I'm not a fan of the song, I'm like, look what you've done
Yeah,
there. Right? Like
yeah.
for example, my current earworm right now, I mean, it's not bad. My friend was he put up a story with him cleaning his headphones.
Okay.
And like he's putting sponge and soap water, saying, I don't know if this works, whatever. And then you have the Rockstar album playing.
Hell yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So
Like the
randomly,
Ranbir
boom,
Kapoor
boom would
Rockstar
play
album.
in my head. What a banger album.
Banger. Excellent.
And so that was playing in my head for a week randomly. And I was like, why is it playing? And I was like, oh, because he put up a story.
Oh
And
yeah.
like I do this thing on my Instagram these days. I don't know how long I'll do it for, but it's called Song of the Day. And
Hmm.
that's very like you don't know what will come when, like what genre
Yeah.
is when. It's what's my vibe in that moment is that song.
Yeah. Whenever I take a shower, this might be TMI, but I when I'm playing music in the shower, I always keep it on shuffle,
Yeah.
just because it start the day with like whatever the universe wants me to listen to.
Yeah, all my playlists are on shuffle. Or like I love Spotify's Discover Weekly thing, which refreshes every
Yeah.
Monday. I love
Yeah.
the day lists are sometimes they need some work, but they're all right. But my on
No,
repeat,
not even like playlists. Like I'll do like my liked songs, like every single song in my entire liked. I'll keep it on shuffle only in the morning, though. Only when I'm taking a
yeah,
shower.
yeah, you like I don't know what's coming. I
Let's
yeah,
see
I,
how. Yeah.
yeah. Let's see how it goes. It's pretty. It's a very fun exercise. I like all my playlists on shuffle unless it's an album. Some
Yeah.
albums I think have to be heard in the order. Like for example, so one of the best electronica and one of the best trance albums out there is Armin van Buuren Intense. It's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Classic. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I think it has to be heard in the order, right, to experience it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that brings me to my final question, which I'm clubbing, and which is who are three? Give me three artists who you think are going to rise, and along with that, three artists who we're coming back to looping back to the conversation about people who are embracing their identity with their sound, right? So who are the three artists there and the three artists that you think are going to rise?
Like Indian, international, anything, or
And
like. Ooh. Okay.
your top three off the top of your head.
Okay. There's this one artist called Unkill G.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know
you
Uncle
know,
G.
dude, he's so fucking good. One of my friends, One of my friends works with him, uh, helps him like manage his stuff, distribute his music. So talented. I feel like I just feel like he needs to put out more music. And I know he has a lot in store, but I feel like he's definitely someone on my radar. There's this other kid called Som the poet. Have you heard of him? Som the poem? He Oh my god, he's probably topping my list right now. Me and my boss really like him right now. He has a song called "Lover on Rent." Okay, yeah, its EP is called "Lover on Rent," and it's I think he's in an engineering college right now, and he's in the hostel rooms, and he made a lot of these reels of him performing his songs in this really shitty fucking engineering college dorm room, and it's like Char Diwali, but if Char Diwali was more unhinged, and like it's
Okay.
really about him trying to like his ex girlfriend Sunita or Disha or something doesn't love him anymore, and he's like crying and he's mixing auto tune like T-Pain auto tune with like it's fucking bizarre, but he owns it. Like he owns how borderline cringe it is, but it's also like funny. Let me send you shit. He's hilarious. I feel like, and he's actually musically very talented. So I feel like he's found that really cool middle ground between really funny and also really like musically talented. So definitely him. Um, who else? There's a band called Green Park. Do you know Green Park? I love them. I think their bassist Arpan was my senior in college. They make really really fun alternative rock music. It's not even just it's like it's whole. They're doing their whole different thing altogether. So yeah, Uncle G, Som the poem, and Green Park, probably off the top of my head.
Nice. And who do you think is someone that if member wants to listen, who's embracing their identity and embracing their sound very well, who are the three artists they should listen?
Um, I think Dhanji, but I feel like I've already spoken about him. I'll give you a better example than him. I'll tell you two. And for two completely different but also similar reasons. Trixing and The Siege. They're two hip hop artists, vastly different. Could not be more different from each other. But they're both. So Trixing, for example, he is a Punjabi rapper and R&B singer. Comes from Chandigarh, lives in Bombay. Has that very lover boy appeal to his music. Writes in a very sexy kind of way. But his lyrics also do get very introspective, which I feel fits his identity very well because his audience is also very slightly more I don't want to say like more socioeconomically more upper class. He knows that it's a primarily female audience and he leans into it, right? And he knows that this is the kind of music he's making. And I feel like that self-awareness I feel like is very important because his sound fits for that particular demographic, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, entirely altogether, the Siege, he comes from Mira Road and he's very proud about his Mira Road heritage. And he is so authentic in his lyricism that he talks about. It's a little like it's that bluntness that I feel like we've been missing out in a lot of rappers. That I feel like lyrics are so there's so much about bravado nowadays that you kind of lose that element of relatability. I think Siege writes in a way that is so it's almost conversational to a point where he's literally talking to you as someone who struggles with things like money, someone who struggles with fitting in with people in a city like Bombay, who struggles with I've had hard times growing up, but I never let that stop me from making it. So they're both authentic in their own unique ways because they know and they're self-aware about where they come from and who they're making music for, if that makes sense. So definitely the two of them.
Nice. That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much. I am so excited. I thought this would be something that I thought maybe an hour and a half max. We have hit almost 3 hours. We're 10
Hell yeah.
minutes, 12 minutes short to 3 hours.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, as always. Lovely chatting with you.
It was great chatting with you too, and I'm really glad we could finally make this happen. And
100%.
I think the two of us geek out over music a lot. So this is
We do. Yeah.
it's a very, very fun
This is
episode.
cathartic in a lot of ways. Like I feel like I needed to let a lot of this off my chest.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that you could also share these stories with us, and uh, and yeah, I look forward to maybe having you back on this when
Yeah,
we're
definitely.
doing something more, maybe for another format we're doing that uh, we will talk about later. But
For sure.
yeah, thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely chatting with you.
Likewise. Okay.